What's up,
Hi,
everyone?
live.
We are, yes, to the
Yeah.
various platforms. Shout out the people on Facebook and the Twitch universe and wherever you
Oh,
may be watching. We are here today to bridge the gap with Alex Montagano. My name is Holden Stephan Roy. As y'all know, I do the thing where I ask people about their lives and we run through it. Typically, we don't talk to political candidates, but then we started doing that and kind of readapted the show a little bit. But basically, we went from creative professionals into this because we realized, when it comes down to English media and conversations, there's a lack thereof when it comes down to decision making. And when it's something like, I don't know, politics, or you need to make big decisions in your life, it's super helpful if you're not dealing with translations in your head to like add that extra stress factor to your life. So instead of being the wanky whiner of yesteryear, I decided to participate in the process and talk to people. So at the very least, I could make myself an informed decision on who I vote for as much as possible. And that led us to this moment where you are, I guess, the eighth person I've talked to, which is cool because all of y'all talking to me is dope, right? Like, from my perspective, it's cool. It feels like more adult than a lot of the things of my past. But right, like
yeah, but there isn't anything wrong for being for being childish, Holden. So I won't hold it against you.
I'm totally with it. But sometimes you want to do some good old adult stuff in a childish way.
Yeah, I can see I understand that as well. Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
Excellent.
so so with
And
that,
don't forget, I'm the guy who plays with trains.
yeah, honestly, I saw the train set. I think it was yesterday. I went by,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Finally, wow.
it's real
Yeah.
cool. I was like a little like speechless looking at it. It's like every movie train set you've ever seen in terms of the cool, complicated ones, only in real life, and it was dope. Like really detailed model work and all that. I appreciated the trains. But with
Thank
that,
you.
the goal is to kind of walk through your life a little bit, and we'll get to all the politics stuff, but it's also important to figure out, I feel like, who the people are that we're voting for, because I know a lot of people like to focus on issues, whatever, but since the issues are what they are in local politics, the people are more interesting to me. And so I was hoping you could run us all the way back to the very beginning and tell us where you come from. Like, where are you born into this world?
Oh, I was born in Montreal.
That's
I was born, yeah, St. Mary's on Lacombe. So I was born in NDG, CDN-NDG,
that's dope.
and I was brought up by a French mother and an Italian father. But on my French side, I have Irish. So um, my grandmother's my mother's mother, so it's my great grandmother, was early, and she came over um, during the potato famine and landed in Quebec City because that was the cheapest ticket available from Ireland to North America. So they ended up in Quebec City, and very tragic story. She lost both her parents to disease on the trip on the way over, and she had an uncle here that adopted her, but not her sister. And when her sister heard the news, she committed suicide. So my family is very rooted in Quebec's history. I have Langlois, Potvin, Lapierre, excuse me, in my name, Montagano, Delazio, and Early. So I really see myself as, uh, you know, um, a Montrealer. Firstly, yes, my identity is as a Montrealer. I've I've kind of given up on these federal and provincial identities because they're very divisive, and I don't really feel that they represent me as a person. And I find that calling myself a Montrealer really gives me a local focus as I go about my life.
Yeah, I respect that. I like Montrealer. I mean, Quebec is a hard thing to identify with depending on who you are. And Canada's a weird thing because it's not defined. Montreal is the clearest label that I can understand of like the local regional identities you could possibly have. So I really like that. But
Yeah, I think that as I go on about my life, I my current philosophy, and that may change, is think globally, act locally. because our capacity to have an impact on the global environment is limited. And I think that our choices in our everyday daily lives, this is the way in which we can have the greatest impact, I feel, globally, is by making those small mini decisions, right? It's like the Depeche Mode song, right? Everything counts in small amounts, right? Remember that one?
I'm sure.
So as a Gen X, I got to call back the 80s, right? The techno 80s, the mod 80s, a little bit.
Depeche Mode's good. I don't know that song, but I mess with Depeche Mode.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then the whole identity question, I think also what happens is that in Quebec, I was brought up in an Anglophone environment. So, like, I have French, Roman Catholic cultural customs, but I was growing up in English. So I'm like in this weird kind of no man's zone. And as many of us are. And I didn't want to get stuck in this whole federal nationalist debate and all this kind of stuff. So that's why, again, long-winded story, I identify as a Montrealer.
I like long-winded stories. This is the right show for that. I know a lot of places might be the opposite, but that's why we do this on live Twitch, long form. It's all good. Actually, we just got a question, and I'm all about crowd interaction when that happens. Shout out Elena. Would you support the move to have Montreal operate as a city-state?
Oh boy, that's a good one. That's a tough question because that kind of is a theoretical question, because cities in the province of Quebec are a provincial creation. The provincial government creates us. So without the province, we don't exist politically. It's like we're a creation. So, but do I entertain that concept? Balarama Homeless has come out with Montreal should be a bilingual city. I like that idea. But at the end of the day, I just want people to get along. I really think that this constant, debate or arguments over language and cultural purity or cultural programming, it's really not productive for us as a community, as a society. And it distracts us away from getting shit done, right? Like, instead of talking about cleaning our streets, about programs, development programs for our children, our seniors, become sensitized people to environmental issues, to basically combat global warming and the larger issue of rampant pollution. We're talking about language and culture. And my attitude and feeling about language and culture is let it be, let it flourish. It is what it is. It is a beautiful thing, and life is beautiful, and the world is a beautiful place. So, I have a little micro story to tell. I have a client who is Asian, who grew up in the West Indies. So he's Asian with this really thick West Indian accent. It's like listening to Bob Marley. And every time I see him, all I can think about, it's such a beautiful world that we can have this diversity and these different people coming together and living different areas. And, culture and language and who you are really is an evolution, right? We can't impose that. Long-winded again. Sorry, Holden.
That's fair. And I think the interesting part, though, that it's cool because it is kind of idealistic to entertain the notion, but from what I understand, if Quebec says no, that's it.
Well, people say no all the time, and people say no to me all the time, and never give up. Never surrender. Look at me. I'm running a small borough party, CDN-NDG, and it's an uphill battle. I'm not delusional, and you gotta continue the road, right? If you believe in something, you think it's the right thing to do, then stick to it. And I really do believe in determination. I really do believe in over the long term, if people continue, yes, we want this. Yes, this is something we should be entertaining. I think change is possible, and I have hope. You have to have hope. We don't have hope. What is there, right? Despair. You gotta hope
on that. That's a fair point. If you can also make a compelling enough argument, you can convince somebody's mind. That's a
Yeah,
good way to spin
exactly.
it, even if
Yeah.
it
So,
takes a while.
but I think it'd be very difficult to pull off. And as I made a decision to focus on CDN-NDG because, again, think locally, act globally. And I think that at that level, I can make the biggest and greatest impact. The other issue, too, is not just the city of Montreal. It's the borough of CDN-NDG. It's huge, 170,000 people. It covers a large territory. And CDN-NDG is the same borough, but even at the community level, community groups, and you have the Conseil communautaire Côte-des-Neiges and you have the Conseil communautaire Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, it operates in very separate ways.
I'm not even going to lie. I didn't know any of that existed until this week.
Yeah, and a lot of people argue, and even Warren Allman, I don't know if people know who Warren Allman was, but he was an MP for a long time with the Liberals, and for a short stint, he was councillor for Loyola. And even he was arguing that the borough was too large and should be two boroughs. And there's this whole conversation that because it's one borough, they can skimp us because we're big. So they don't have to they can give us a smaller budget. They can, they deny us bilingual status because of Côte-des-Neiges. Côte-des-Neiges is more French and has the presence of U of M Municipal Montréal.
What do you mean by this bilingual status? There's boroughs that can be designated bilingual status.
Yes, exactly. And we don't have bilingual status. In fact, Sue Montgomery got into trouble because her card had English and French on it. And the OLF came down, the Office de langue française, said, no, you can't have French and English. You have to have only French because you don't have bilingual status. The borough does not have bilingual status. So, this is a question.
Wild.
Yeah, this is and the bizarre thing. I don't know if anybody listened to the debate on that was hosted by Le Conseil Développement Côte-des-Neiges, but the Conseil, right? They asked all their questions in French, which was fine. I don't have a problem with that. But at the end of the meeting, they opened it up to the public. And all the questions from the public were in English. So I just found that like a disconnect. Why is it the Conseil is asking all the questions in French, and then at the end, the public's asking all the questions in English? So there has been this kind of a drive on the Côte-des-Neiges side pour la francisation de la quartier comme Côte-des-Neiges, whereas NDG, you get less that because we're more predominantly Anglophone community, and we don't have the institutional presence of institutions like Auditoire Saint-Joseph and U of M.
So I'm just going to cut for a pause. So to answer the people on Facebook, Ellen and them, I see your questions. We'll get to them. This is dope. You're getting interactions.
Right.
Hampstead and Montreal West are part of Côte Saint-Luc, if I'm not mistaken. That's not part of Montreal, so they technically don't count in this bigger picture.
Yes, they don't. They're not. What happened was that we had a merger in the city of Montreal. There was a period in Canadian history. It happened in Ontario as well. They merged the cities to create less cities, bigger cities. And that happened in Montreal under Bouchard. And a lot of the Anglophone cities in Montreal were pissed. There's no better word to describe it.
I never saw my parents so willing to vote.
Pissed. and that would get me sanctioned in most meetings, by the way, Holden, for using the word piss. So thank you very much for that privilege, because I do really feel it expresses the sentiment at the time. So they were pissed, and the Charest and the Liberals got elected into power. And one of the promises that Charest made during the election was that they were going to allow them to demerge. And that's what happened. A lot of them did demerge. Hampstead, Côte Saint-Luc, Westmount, Dorval, Pointe Claire.
I was in high school for that. I remember it vividly. I remember because my parents maybe aren't enthusiastic about voting. But I think in that vote, if you didn't vote, they counted you as a no. So you actually had to go vote to become a yes. And I vividly remember my parents making a big deal and everybody showing up, and everybody I know that was English voted.
Oh yeah, and that's the way Charest organized the referendums. He made all these kind of conditions and parameters that he had to have this many people turn out and this kind of vote, and he set a very tough bar. And that was underhanded way of kind of preventing the diffusions. But in spite of that, Hampstead, Côte St. Luc, Westmount, and many former cities demerged. Yeah, and in fact, that I don't know if you know Anthony Housefather, who is the current MP
Yeah.
for
Well,
us
he
in
has a
Côte
very
d'Ivoire area.
distinct name, so I've kind of watched him be on signs my whole life,
Right.
and his name stands out.
Yeah, that's how he started out in politics. He headed the no vote for the yes vote for demerge, excuse me, or I don't know how it was, yes for demerge, no stay with Montreal, whatever it was, and
Yeah.
that's how he got his big springboard, and then became mayor of Côte St. Luc. Then after that, he replaced Irwin Cotler for the MP of Mount Royal. Yeah, and he recently won the election. Yeah.
To be fair, I just assume that riding goes red, and that's just the end of it. That's my.
That is it's a liberal stronghold.
Yo,
So is Mark Garneau in our district
absolutely.
is a liberal stronghold, and I'm not happy about that. It has nothing to do with the Liberal Party. I don't like the fact that you have districts that are non-competitive politically speaking, because we're not competitive politically. When politicians come to election time, they go, who do we need to bribe to win the election? NDG? No. They always vote Liberal. Mount Royal? No. They always vote Liberal. So we get, in my opinion, we get the short end of the stick as it goes, as political goods are dispersed. That's my strong opinion.
Well, it also, okay, like just to like add on to that, because sometimes people find it wildly weird that people don't vote. But like, let's say Mark Garneau is not my guy. I don't know that I'm as motivated to vote in my riding. The same thing happened to me in Ville Saint Laurent. I don't remember the dude's name, but man, I looked up the riding of Ville Saint Laurent, and dude had held it for 20 something years, and I'm like, oh, so it doesn't really matter who I vote for. That guy's gonna win.
Yeah, but our district did go to NDP during the Orange Wave, right? The problem,
that's fair.
The problem that was there was that they had a Porto candidate, and she was just dropped there. Never expected her to win, and she won. And she really never connected with the community. She really did not capitalize in the 4 years to connect with the community, to demonstrate that she was a viable long-term option rather than just a protest vote. So that was an opportunity lost. But, these things happen.
It's a fair point. So, yeah, we did have more questions, which, again, is cool. So, Sandrine, and shout out Sandrine, what is Alex's vision for small businesses on commercial avenues in NDG?
Excellent question. We have a program for small businesses in NDG, CDN-NDG. Now, first of all, as you know, my mantra is that the borough of CDN-NDG is underfinanced. And not only are we underfinanced, we don't get a proper operational budget for everyday needs. That means picking up the garbage, clean the parks. We also, in terms of investments, we get screwed as well. We get one of the smallest investment portfolios in the city. And because of that,
wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, that means the city, makes decisions where they're going to invest money. Like, for example, let's build a market. Let's revamp Saint Hubert City. Let's put, entertainment infrastructure. It could be anything. It could be like beautification of commercial streets like Sherbrooke, where Sandrine has her store. And we're really not getting our fair share of what we deserve as a community. You can see it in our streets. We really don't have the same dynamic streets as we see in other boroughs. And there's also other issues in the sense that Monkland is prioritized over Sherbrooke. So, but I really think what's happened in CDN-NDG is that our borough has been designed primarily centered around the automobile. And we need massive investments to reorient our community locally. And this is very important for two reasons. First reason is the environmental concern. The second reason is that our whole economy is going through internet sales, big Amazon, eBay. We're buying a lot of stuff online. So we have to find creative ways to support our local business owners. And the way we do that is by creating a pleasant shopping experience. People still want to go out and shop. They don't want to buy everything online. They want to go to a destination. They want to, they want to grab tea, a lunch, and be able to shop and experience an outing with the family. And the problem with CDN-NDG is we haven't made those investments. So part of my business program is by identifying villages, right? So For example, Sherbet's a village that services the area around it down to the tracks, let's say up to Monkland. And then you got Summerled. They're kind of a village servicing the community around there.
That's fair.
And then you've got Victoria Street that's servicing the community there. So let's make investments there. Let's encourage entrepreneurs to open stores, to provide local-oriented products and services. Because quite frankly, if they're not providing some unique service or product that's local or is unique, there's no way anybody's going to be able to compete with Amazon. So a city has an important role, in my mind, on encouraging that type of economic activity and creating sort of the environment in which it can prosper. So we have a full program on that. Go to CDN-NDG.com. It's there. Read it. I like it. It's a great program. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Sandrine. Thank you very much.
I gotta give you a lot of props for the level of depth you have in your answers. No shots to the other candidates, but relative to anyone else I've talked to, that's some serious level of like, I am ready for these questions.
Next question. Come on. I love this stuff. I want people.
At the moment, one more. I mean, before we jump back in, because you still got I'm so curious about you. But like Elena's got another question, and she's like, thanks for the answer to my question above. She appreciates it. Here's another. With Quebec's target to stop selling gas-powered vehicles by 2035 recently moved from 2025, what would be your priority to ensure NDG is ready for this massive shift? And as I understand, there are some logistical housing concerns for electric vehicles.
Yeah, okay, so a bit of a repeat of the last question. Remember I was talking about villages? Okay, so what happens now with the central city takes our money. We give $500 million to the city each year in tax, $500 million. So in a 4-year mandate, that's $2 billion that we give the city in taxes. What does the central city do with that money? They take our money, they give us a peanut, minuscule little budget to occupy for our needs, and they make very little investments here, and they invest it downtown, and they invest it elsewhere. Because the mentality of the central city, and it continues to be the mentality of the central city, in spite of all the green talk we get from Projet Montréal, is they expect, or their expectation of people in Côte-Neige-NDG is that we're going to jump in our cars, or we're going to take public transportation, and we're going to go downtown, where the shops are, where the entertainment is, where everything is. And what we're seeing is a transformation of boroughs like Plateau, Rosa Montpetit. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain moment right now.
Good.
It's Benoit Doré's borough, which gets lots and lots of money, and he controls the purse strings. I'm having a real Plateau. It's not the Plateau. It's where Griffintown is.
Okay.
What is that borough called again? Okay, forgive me. So my point, which I'm getting lost on, is that what we need to do is invest in creating villages to encourage people to shop locally. So when it comes down to the green initiative, the green environment, like I said before, our neighborhood has been designed around the automobile. No, it's not Saint Henri. No, I can't believe it. For Sud-West. It's called Sud-West.
That's what it is. It's Southwest. It's everything
Sud-West,
next to NDG that's English.
Benoit Doré. Let's go. I hope that I answered that question. And I know there's a lot about electric cars and charging stations.
So
and
you sort of
garages.
started to answer it, but you didn't actually say what we would do about it.
Again, it's about the villages concept, right? You need to reduce car use. So to me, it's not so much about electric cars, gas cars, whatever the case may be. It's about getting people out of their cars. And how do we do that in Côte-Neige-NDG? We do that by investing in our communities and investing in commercial arteries and creating that shopping experience. So really, my most pleasant moments in CDN-NDG are walking from my home. I don't take my car, and go down to Sherbrooke, where Sandrine has her store, and cater. I collect vinyl record. That's my kind of pastime other than trains. And I go to Encore Records and I buy records, and I stop and have tea. There's an Iranian restaurant there, Saranj, if I remember correctly its name. I apologize if I get it wrong. Play a couple games of backgammon. It's like the experience of going out, interacting with people in your community, feeling a sense of community. So we need to build upon that. And I think that when you get back to the car how do you say, when we talk about automobiles and cars and their roles in our society, I think what we need to do is move away from automobiles, try to get people back on the streets, try to get kids to walk to school again. And yeah, bicycles are part of that formula. And here's the shocker. Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready? After all the blowback we had over bike pass and all that kind of stuff, I believe in bike pass. And I would love to see a bike path connecting NDG to Côte-des-Neiges to the mountain. And we don't have one. We don't have a bike path that allows us to connect from NDG to the mountain. It's a great ride. I've done that many times. When I was in better shape prior to the pandemic, now I'm a fatty. I used to climb the mountain. And I can't do that anymore. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I apologize. I'm hanging my head in shame.
It's okay. Everyone's life adapted over the course of the pandemic.
All right. Sorry about that. All right.
No, but
next
that's fair.
question.
Well, that was
Was
it.
that
That was like from like the ones from the things, but I was more also curious about you and like just your journey through life, right? Because the other part of like you have your platform, but who is Alex Montagano? Because I know that you are a guy that was there, and then people have opinions about you. And I know that you do some landscaping kind of work or something to that effect.
No, I'm not a landscaper, a general contractor.
See,
yeah,
like,
so I fix old NDG, Côte-des-Neiges NDG homes. That's my specialty. So I repair, renovate, and restore. I do extensions, bathrooms. I do the full gamut, full guts as well. But my sort of position in the market is to help people who own older homes to renovate them in a way that maintains their character. And I'm really big on maintaining the character of the older NEGs because they're just gorgeous, beautiful homes, just absolutely stunning, some of these homes that I work on. And I really enjoy the work. And like I told you before this meeting started, I spent the day today basically dealing with a hot water heating system of an old NDG home. And these heating systems are phenomenal, by the way. There's nothing wrong with them. I always am in like shock when people rip these hot water heating systems in to put HVAC. First of all, the houses were never designed to accommodate the conduits of HVAC systems, and they damage the home, and it's really hard to maintain the character of the home with an HVAC system. So, this is what I do. I love it. It's a great job. It's challenging. It's difficult. Always headaches. Nothing's standard. It's all custom work because, these were the old days, right? In the 20s, the 30s, when they built things old school. They didn't have excavators to dig out to put the foundation. They dug those things out by hand. And so it's quite something to see the workmanship back in those days. And it was good. They took pride in the work. The crap I see in older homes has nothing to do with the original construction. The crap that I see is all the hackers that came after the fact. So I have a lot of respect for the original builders and tradesmen that operated in CDN-NDG, really good tradesmen, impressive. And so that's part of my life right now. And I've also spent my life in environmental services. I worked for a company that supplied products and services to deal with contamination, right? And then prior to that, I spent about 15 years in the IT sector. So I sold computers. I was a computer nerd at one point, really liked computers. And I worked for ViewSonic, LG Electronics, Xerox, 3D-FX. Many of these names people don't remember because as a lot of things in the IT sectors, they get big and then they disappear and everybody forgets about them. And then my education, I went to high school in NDG. And I went to Concordia and McGill and completed a BA in politics. So politics has always been an interest of mine. But in university, I studied more developmental politics, vis-a-vis developing countries like Africa. And but after I finished my BA, I continued my studies and did graduate studies in business because I just needed to complement that degree because it was very hard to find a job as a politician in Quebec as an Anglophone. That wasn't happening.
That's fair.
And Oh yeah, and one of the most impactful things that happened to me in my life is after I finished CJEP, I decided to go travel in West Africa, and and that really gave me an insight and outlook and into life that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't done that. And the biggest thing I learned by traveling through Africa, backpack, I traveled through Sahara Desert, almost lost my life twice. I went through a war zone and just saw just absolute extreme poverty that I've never seen in my life. Just people living really on the edge. It was just shocking how people could live with so little. And the most important thing I learned from that experience is that people are naturally good. People are good people. Like all over the world, people their fallback position or their starting point is goodness. It's all the crap that gets in the way of that poisons us. So I really have a lot of faith in humans and their capacity for good. Yet at the same time, we can be complete and total pigs. The way we treat our planet and the way that we treat each other, lack of understanding, and so it's a yin yang kind of situation, right? We're definitely an animal of contradictions.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. So at what point are you going through all of this life journey of various careers and you're like, I'm going to decide to run for office and become the mayor?
I was living in Lacombe. I had just bought my first home. My firstborn, I had my first son, and I just couldn't believe what like a mess the neighborhood was. I was going to the park with my son, Park Mackenzie King, and it was just a mess. Litter everywhere, the streets strewn with garbage, and it was a combination of things. Primarily the city was just not doing its job. I went to I went to an urban planning meeting that they were having for the borough of Côte-Neige, and that's where I met Appebaum for the first time in my life. And I have to say, with absolute honesty, Holden, are you listening to me? Like, I immediately hated the guy. I just didn't like this guy. He was such an arrogant SOB. I couldn't believe it. He tried to blow me off. And I'm like, I came out of my way. I actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation on my ideas on dealing with garbage removal and like how to reduce the traffic congestion and how the traffic was killing our neighborhoods. And he completely blew me off. And that's how I started in municipal politics. It was that instant. And Marcel Tremblay was there. That was Gerard Tremblay's brother. Gerard Tremblay, as you know, resigned over corruption, and Marcel left. Shortly thereafter. Marcel was the counselor for the district of NDG. Yeah. So I've been at this for a really long time, Holden, 20 years, right? So how old are you again?
33.
Yeah, so when you were 13 years old, that's when I got involved in municipal politics. Yeah, long time.
That's wild. Yeah. So you got in because the mayor was mean to you, or the city councilor was not?
Oh, it wasn't mean to me. He just wasn't interested in listening to me, and it clearly wasn't being responsive to my concerns. And I just couldn't believe like the manner in which our borough was being managed. And even to this day, I guess that it frustrates me. I guess that what I find is people in NG kind of like we accept the situation because I don't know, is it we don't know any better, or it's like a frog that's in a pot and you heat up the water slowly until it boils, it doesn't realize it. We just accept this situation in CDN-NDG that basically treats us like second-class citizens in our own city. And the irony of it all is that we're a cash cow. We're an economic powerhouse. We are one of the largest contributors to the city's finances, and they just skimp on us all the time because they expect to take care of ourselves. And for a certain degree, a certain way, yeah, we do take care of ourselves, but it's our tax dollars. Now we pay for it. And the thing is, other boroughs have better services, better infrastructure than we do, and we're paying for it. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm very passionate, and I consider myself a passionate person, but I'm also very analytical. And I've done the numbers. I've punched the numbers. I've gone over them again, correlation analysis. I've gone through the budgets for the last 15 years. And I tell you, it's bad. It's just bad. There's no way else to describe it. It's just not fair. It's bad, and it's wrong. And none of our local politicians talk about it because they don't want to draw attention to it, because then they have to start asking questions. Like Lino Perez, this guy, he's basically a creation of Michael Appebaum. He replaced Solly Siddell, who was arrested on corruption. Very dirty politics in the borough CDN-NDG. Very dirty. And here is a gentleman. He was mayor of the borough when Appebaum was arrested. When Solly Siddell was arrested. And we had the director of permits and inspections committed suicide. It's like really bad shit went down. And then we discovered just a couple, I think it was a year ago, they did an anti-corruption year audit in the borough of Cotonou, and we discovered that the borough of Cotonou has no anti-corruption policy. How is that possible? I just don't understand that. I want Perez to answer that question. Why is it that you did not implement an anti-corruption policy in spite of all the crap that went down in our borough? How is that possible? I just don't get it. So, yeah. And then the other aspect, the negative aspect, or the depressing element of politics in CDN-NDG is that people don't vote.
Yeah.
So because people don't vote, you have a very small group of people who basically decide who wins the election. And these are the people who don't like me because I don't like them, because really they're hijacking the democratic system, and they're fine with that. And I'm not. And I think this is a big problem internationally. We've seen kind of like, people are starting to ask the question, right? What's happening to liberal democracies all over the world? Where did these people like Trump show up? Why are we having identity politics showing up? It's we're really at a crossroads in terms of democracy. And it's like people, I don't know what people, I guess my wife feels that people have turned themselves off from politics because it's just, they feel it's a wasted exercise. And that's unfortunate. And also politics has a bad name. And that kind of, I studied politics, and life is politics, right? We turn on the water. There was politics that was involved in bringing water to the house. In fact, the water meter contract was a source of, corruption, political corruption in the city, garbage collections, political. And people say, oh, I don't want to talk about politics. How can you not talk about politics? It's everywhere.
I think it's
everywhere.
Because I mean, my experience with people on these kinds of subjects is like this.
Right.
If you don't understand it, and you don't understand how you can be involved in it, it's just stress. I mean,
I agree. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, why don't we understand it? Because our elected representatives don't want us to understand it. Because if we understood it, people would be engaged. They'd be asking questions. They don't want people asking questions.
I think also like Quebec,
yes?
Since I've been an adult, right? Like, right. Quebec politics has never been about anything. Like, I look at the election issues, right? And it's language and immigration, almost exclusively. Sometimes an education gets thrown in. I'm like, it's weird. Nobody in Quebec talks about economy, really.
Quebec politics, yeah, I agree. Quebec politics is taken hostage over like language, cultural issues,
I mean,
and identity politics.
It extends to like here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I look at it like, then you get to the other side of it. So one thing is the issues that ever get discussed are weird. The other side of it is like, it's corrupt and it's confusing. But like, I didn't really understand how the Montreal electoral system worked. The website's atrociously bad, by the way. The City of Montreal has a very bad website.
I agree.
Um,
Try to navigate the urban planning department's website. It's gotten better of late, but it's just horrible. It's horrendous. They basically want you to figure things out yourself. Yeah, I agree.
But then you like reach this situation where it gets abstract and people talk about housing crises and whatnot. And I guess people don't fully understand the levels of government. I went to cadets, so I got explained levels of government via cadets, and I appreciate them for that. And there's a lot of confusion between stuff. Even in sometimes the questions I've seen when I said, do y'all have questions? I'm like, that's not really a Montreal question. I'm like, I don't know if the mayor of
You
or
are
the
so
city
right.
councilor can help you with this abstract. And I don't mean like something like the Montreal city state one. I mean, I've seen some abstract, like, that's federal, right? Like level of questions that come in sometimes, and you're like, so I don't think people understand the system a lot.
I don't blame people. I don't just blame people for that. I blame our MPs and our MNAs for that because they're not accessible.
That's true. I tried to tweet at Mark Garneau a couple of times, and he didn't answer me. But
they're not accessible. And we have a question period at the municipal level. So that's the only public forum we currently have on the local political level for people to express their opinions on a variety of subjects. Yeah. And I could go on with that. And our councilors and our mayors discuss issues that they're outside the city's mandate. And they do that. It's very simple because they can make themselves look good by giant bandwagging on these like feel-good issues.
What's an issue that's outside the city mandate?
For example, food, healthy foods, choices. People. That's a federal issue. That's a provincial issue. It's not a city mandate. What's another thing that's not in the city mandate? Here's another one. The price of houses. The price of houses, affordable housing is a big problem. But the city's powers to deal with that problem are extremely limited. Extremely limited. This is about national interest rate policy. This has to do with it's not just Montreal. This is happening North American wide with the quick rise of home prices. You're talking about speculation that's happening. The city's capacity to really have an impact in that domain is extremely limited. It's not something the city really can have a big impact on. And the other big problem right now internationally, and I don't want to talk a lot about it because it's not about the city, is that people are over leveraged. They're too much debt, and people become addicted on cheap financing, and that can't continue. It's a big problem. So what's another issue? Social housing to a certain degree. When Balarama Wholeness and Valerie Plant are making their big, massive promises, 50,000 units, 60,000 units, all dependent upon provincial funding. And that's the beauty, right? So they can make that promise, right? And then if the provincial government doesn't come through, they go, oh, it's not my fault. I made that promise, but the government didn't give me the money. Well, you should have made that promise in the begin with. And I'll tell you, I've been involved in I think 4 municipal elections now, and every election, social housing comes up. Social housing. It's not a.
What about
it's not a new
the issue of condos versus social affordable housing? Is that more of a city issue?
Well, the city can encourage the construction development of rental units, and it can do things like prevent conversions of existing houses to condos or co-proprietorships to maintain the rental stock. So there is a role they can play there. Yes, they have a capacity to act in the sense if they issue permits, so they can control what is being built. But the problem is that the construction sector, and I know I'm in the construction sector, and I say this, I don't do any new construction. I'm a renovator. I work on older homes. I'm a renovator restorer. So I have nothing to gain or no interest in condo development. But condo development is very important to cities because what it does is it improves, it increases densification. So if you have more people living in a smaller area, it's a lot cheaper for the city to service this group because for public transportation, it's a much larger, dense population. In terms of investments in infrastructure, it becomes that math starts to make a lot more sense, and the tax base exists to do it. If you have people spread out over a massive territory, it becomes very expensive to support public transportation systems to transport people over long extended commutes, especially if you're servicing towns like a 5,000 people or something like that. So, but Laval got its metro station, right? That's like, if you do the math on the Laval metro station, it doesn't make any sense. But they got it because Laval has political clout. It has more political clout than Montreal does. Remember, that was Vaillant Carland. He's the one who got caught with very, very corrupt. It's incredible what happened in Laval. It really, another example of just like the rampant corruption that is part of Quebec's history. It's an unfortunate history of Quebec. Yeah.
That's fair. I was honestly appreciative of that metro because it's made me going to Laval a lot easier when those few times I've had to. But I've never looked at the economics of how it got done and who paid for it and all that good stuff.
It's the money. Like, would we have been better served by extending the blue line? I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think the money would have been better spent there. Now, remember, investments in infrastructure in Quebec don't necessarily mean that they make sense. They make sense because they're, trying to, in many instances, they're designed to win favor, win votes, and there are definitely a lot of political considerations. Just look at our investment budget, which sucks. So as it goes with the central city, when it comes to political considerations, CDN-NDG is always getting shortchanged, right? I could use stronger language, but I don't know. Are children listening to this program?
There's not a universe where a child is like, let's go listen to the municipal politics.
No, there isn't.
You're like, yeah, no, that's not fun.
But that's a good point you bring up, because we should start studying. I mean, we should start teaching civic studies in high schools again.
Facts.
And we don't do that. Also, we don't tell people about this.
I think if politicians did just say fuck, I would be more comfortable with the situation.
Oh, really?
Well,
that sounds like a challenge.
It's one of those things I think about a lot, right? Like,
right.
Most people.
I feel like I'm going to win your vote if I swear on this show. So, but I can't do that.
I'm not necessarily like personally as inclined to be that easily dissuaded or convinced over something so superficial, but it would make me take you more serious and listen if I knew you were like real, in a sense. Like, I feel like my issue a lot of times is you talk to a politician and they don't feel very like authentic. Like, I go to work, everybody swears, okay?
I'm in the construction business, Holden. You want to get real? We can get real quick, man.
But like,
you want to see me swear?
I mean, that's not where I'm going with it. But I'm saying like we're not exactly like 40 years ago where like people had the same decency standards, and like there's not really censorship on TV the way it used to be. Like the radio lets the F words fly depending on what station. Like it's right. Kind of different world. Like Adobe has flat out had the F word appear in one of their ads, and I was like, this is a beautiful future for me. So it's like, like the question of
it's because the word has become normalized. That's for sure. Whereas when I was young, man, that was a word that would get your mouth clean with soap. So, But
like your late friend Bunny has a good point. Maybe politicians could visit high schools and talk about what they do. Like that would be
and I think that also I think that if you could get people involved at a much younger age about the importance of local affairs and to be engaged in your community, and I think it's also an important step, or it's an important thing that we need to do to build a better sense of community, to get people together more. And, arguing is okay. I think that if we argue and people have arguments and get upset, there's a lot of talk about toxic comments online, which is true. There's a lot of people who really, are really not being productive or constructive contributors to that forum. But I think that for people to think that we can have conversations, and if people get upset, that's not a good thing. I think that people getting upset means that people care. So I kind of have like a mixed bag feeling on that. And
so like people getting upset isn't inherently an issue. When people talk about people getting online is weird. You have literal trolls that are like deliberately hurting people, and you have people that will effectively bully people. And like part of my day job is community guidelines. I get to make judgment calls about, is this something we delete or not, based on does it violate the rules. So I have a lot of experience looking at the subtle nuances of you're versus I feel this is and these are very big nuances at like a subconscious level of linguistic interpretation. But so like I don't think there's an issue with like, freak, honestly, with your post about Lionel today, that's some good beef that y'all neglected to do. As in, there's no reason for me to care outside of like if there's a little bit of issues and something that I can attach to. But then when we ran through most of the issues of NDG, I'm like, man, I don't even care about most of these issues that the politicians are talking about because I don't have kids. I don't ever think about park cleanliness because I don't have kids. Right. I didn't even notice the cracks in the street until people were taking pictures of it. So clearly I never thought about cracks in the streets my whole life.
But you're an artist, right? You're an artist, right?
I'm also like 33 and from this like era. So as much as I'm an artist, I'm still like tapped into like there's the world of parents and non-parents. And that's I think a distinction is like there's a lot of people. So all the younger generation skews super heavy to non-parent. And I'm just a 33-year-old that has a lot more of the interest of non-parents, right? So what I believe is like half the population doesn't have kids. I don't know the real number, but I'm going to assume a lot of people don't have kids. I don't really think anybody talks to them. I think that a lot of politicians focus on homeowners. So unless you're a married adult with kids with homeowning,
they vote. That's why. Yeah, that's why.
So like back to that like by design concept. So if all the political considerations focus on the demographic of homeowners with kids, and I was put in my place. Apparently some people canvass apartments, but I've lived in apartments my whole life in Montreal, never been canvassed one time.
Politicians generally do not canvass apartments, no.
So it's like, and realistically, that's more dense and lower income tiers. Let's be real. Yes. So it's like
and less likely to vote.
I'm not saying that just for the record, I'm not saying other people don't notice the dirty side. I'm saying I never did. And it was just like, crappy snow removal though, that everybody in the world notices the bad snow removal.
And there's a story behind that. We'll go there later if you want. But
yeah, for sure. I want to go through as much of it. So I guess it's like, but when I hear the issues, it's not like we talk about snow removal. That didn't even come up one time. Nobody talked about it.
Yeah, because we're not in the middle of the winter. That's right. If the election was in January and February, you'd be. I bet your bottom dollar we'd be talking about snow removal. Because unfortunately, our collective memory is very short, and November is a great time to have an election because it's not in the middle of the hot, sweltering summer when everybody's at their cottages. And the other reason why it's great to have elections in November is because fall is generally pleasant. You have the changing colors. It's nice, and people are generally, they're around. Kids are back at school, and it's a good time for politicians, right? Because the failures of our services is less, in my mind, visible because our parks are not being taxed so much because kids are in school, and because they have the foliage and the grass gets green again because it's not being burnt by the summer. And so there's politics behind that too. Why is the election in November and not in January, December?
I never thought about that. I see that point a lot. But I guess our snow removal sucks, right? What happened was that under Copeman, which Perez was an important member of that administration, but Perez won't answer to that, of course. They centralized snow removal services. So being the nut job I am. I made an access information request for the complaints for snow removal. And after snow removal services are centralized, they spiked. They went through the roof. So, that was a failure. And that policy decision was a failure. And the other main huge failure of that was that they deducted our budget by $17 million. So they took the money away from us
to deal with our local snow removal needs. And what happens is that if we have a particularly severe winter and we have like more than a number of truckload removals of snow, they ding us. They charge us extra. So they take money away from our already meager, small, minuscule, crappy budget. And then the inverse of that is that if we have a mild winter, right, and they have a huge surplus in the snow budget, we don't get that money back. The central city keeps it. And I do remember several instances under the Appebaum administration where when they had surpluses in the snow budget, we were able to invest that in the community. Became a surplus the community was able to enjoy. So that's a deal that Perez did. So thank him for that.
I feel that. So like, even as we're talking about all this, I'm sitting here going, man, if I'm 18, I don't give a shit about any of this. What are the so how does like let's think about this practically then. So if nobody can connect to young people, and I'm gonna go with the childless, and the more you skew young, the more parallels you're gonna find with that. Right. What are the incentivizations for a young person to actually care? Like even at that point, what is the benefit to let's say a 20-year-old's life if the city goes in a good way?
Well, it's no matter what the demographic is, you're not going to be able to appeal to all people all the time. It's just not possible, right? This is politics, right? So it's kind of like you're trying to do buckshot, hit as much people as possible. So in terms of my perspective and idea of engaging young people, first of all, we need to modernize our election system, right? This idea that a lot of young people are not on the roll, not registered, and they actually have to physically go to a location to sign up, to be registered, to be on the election roll. That's just bullshit. No young person's going to do that, right? They register for the courses online. They do everything online, yet the city thinks they're going to, walk down or go to an obscure office in the borough to sign themselves up to vote. And young people are like, what the hell is this? Why can't I sign up online? They should be able to. And I'm also open to the idea of online voting. Like, we should allow people to online vote, and we should use the tools that are available. Like, I spent 15 years in IT, and IT isn't a powerful thing. And look at this meeting we're having right now. We're both in our respective homes, and we're able to have a conversation and discuss things. And, we're making eye contact. Why isn't that our counselors weren't able to do that with council meetings? They basically shut them down under the guise of the pandemic, operated behind closed doors. It's just... that
one's wild. Okay, that's a wild thing to me. So like, I do want to go back to the kid thing, but like, I don't understand why the council would shut down and not like, why isn't the Zoom calls public and stuff? Like, to me, like, it's wild. Like, it is that easy to do this.
It is. It's like
zero cost. Sorry, Zoom cost me $20 a month.
My feeling on it is they like it that way. And look at what happens in the elections. Like, I'm gonna use Lyndell Perez again because he deserves it. He his accountable for his track record. His track record. He wins his district. He's never won the popular vote. He has the worst participation rate in the city, in the borough. Like, only 23% of people vote. Eligible voters vote. Only 23%. So he's winning elections with like 9% of eligible voters, and he's only got a spread of 2%, like 600 voters. And what has Perez done to improve democracy? What has he done to get people out to vote? How is he has he ever raised this issue? Never. No, he's against changing the electoral system. He's against term limits. He favors what they call preferential voting. Preferential voting that's preferential to him. So this is the toxic, broken system which we find ourselves, which we're involved with in CDN-NDG. And the other thing too is that, I
don't think it's just CDN-NDG. I think that.
Yeah, no, it's a larger issue. But again, think globally, act locally. I gotta focus on my piece because I can't change the world. So No, you're absolutely correct. And there's a lot of gerrymandering going on, right? We see that in the States. It's called gaming the system, right? So you game the system. So the election results are favorable to you,
It's like
whatever it is, right?
redrawing the lines of the districts in order to like
Yes.
move voters in the
Yes.
right
Make it
category.
hard. Make it harder for poor people to vote in apartments. They have to go to some
Yeah. So
office to
like
get them
back
on
to
the
like
register
that
list.
like younger
Yeah.
voter question. I'm gonna be real
Yeah.
with y'all. Old people, anyone probably over the age of 40 is not gonna like where I'm gonna go with it. But it's basically like y'all
Oh,
been
I'm over 40, by the way.
and I say it because I get the same resistance. Like
Right.
people. So if only 30% of people are voting, stop trying to
Right.
talk to them and talk to the other 70. Like evidently what you're doing isn't connecting with the other, because I think the federal election had a 32% turnout rate this time around.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
So
It's
that
like
so that means
it's
to me
ridiculous. And it's like
everybody's
insane.
so everyone's
That's not a
gambling
democracy.
on the same 30% and ignoring the other 70%.
Exactly.
That is my perception of the situation.
It's absolutely true.
It doesn't take into account reality. Now, I'm personally a public figure in the making in my head. Now, I chose this
Right.
life, but every politician's a public figure by choice as well.
Right.
Why are the social obligations of me as a public figure who isn't even employed by people different than that of a politician that is taking my money? I very much expect my politicians to have people on staff to answer my questions, even if they don't do it themselves. I expect the politicians to create content on social media to communicate their ongoing ideas. Like, if I was in charge, I can tell you the only thing I would do really different is y'all would see me being like Viva Frey, where I'm on YouTube all the time telling you what's
Right.
up. And
Yeah.
I absolutely know how little it costs to produce a bad YouTube video, which is all I expect from my politicians. And I know for a
Right.
fact it's a fear of change and an unwillingness to sacrifice the 4 hours it would take them to learn how to do it. That's it.
Right.
So
Well, I've done some videos. I did a video which I'll share at the end of this podcast on what happened in Snowden in the last municipal election to outline why our system's broken.
And then
But I haven't done a lot.
But then
And
it's
I
like,
find
even more than that, right? I know
Right.
there's going to be a knowledge gap. So let's say I'm going to run for politics. I'm
Right.
going to go hit up a university 2 years in advance and start fishing for people that want to be on board with skills I need.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like people treat the city municipal thing very last minute and are used to canvassing door to door, and that they never really considered every other evolution to online marketing that businesses have adapted to, from like snail mail to like now. Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's mailing lists, I'm sure there's like stuff that people do, but yo, for the last 5 years, it's been far too, like, Donald Trump had YouTube channels and stuff. Like, I don't want to bring him up, but like, he really wrecked politics and won. So like, evidently the old rules don't make a lot of sense in the current climate, because you don't have to follow them to win. You have to get attention to win. And so it's like, if everyone here is addicted to American political cycles, how are people going to come through with like calm, boring Montreal stuff and expect to make some noise and make anyone care? And for the salary of a city councilor, I'm kind of like, y'all should work a little harder to get that money, to be 100% honest. I'm going that the number of people I've talked to who have kind of told me that they can't do things I'm willing to do for my dreams as extra time is a little weird to me. Oh, I don't get paid is an excuse you don't accept it from an entrepreneur. So I don't know why I would accept the no from a political candidate. So I'm like looking at it like, every time you get to any kind of a modern move, yo, why is nobody in the park with an amp? It costs $50 to rent an amp for a month. Like, where was like the actual like cool stuff is, I guess, where I'm going with it.
I hear you.
And maybe people don't know. That's fine. But it's the unwillingness to try.
Don't know what, how to engage in the process. Don't know how the system works.
How to talk to anybody outside of what's been done before. It's like unless it's been done before, nobody's willing to try new things.
It takes guts and it takes courage. You know, putting yourself out there, you expose yourself. You know, this is something I have to deal with on a daily basis. I have a wife, I have kids. So, you know, you say something and, you know, there's people clearly who don't like me because I challenge conventions and I don't like how the system works. And there's a lot of people in CDN-NDG who like the system and how it works because they get, you know, they get their meager money. You know, they're getting their little slice of the pie, which is incredibly small. And my argument to that is that we're all getting played, right? At the end of the day, right? Because we're being underfinanced at a $15 million a year that comes out to $60 million in a mandate. So $60 million over 4 years, excuse me. Imagine what we could do with that money. But the central city and our politicians, they're smart. They say, oh, we don't need that extra $15 million because all we need to do is, because nobody votes, we're just going to buy the Italian vote. We're just going to buy the Jewish vote here. We're going to buy the Filipino vote there, and we'll win the election. We don't have to deal with the major financial issues that are confronting the borough. We can just buy basically special interest routes. We can buy communities and then basically ignore the larger needs of the community as a whole. But at the end of the day, it hurts everyone, because what happens is that because the election system is broken, our politicians can get elected by basically servicing just a very small percentage of the population and get their votes they need to get over the top.
So I guess for me, it's like nobody knows this. Nobody knows this to the level of detail. And let's be real.
I was an Appebaum, and I know the groups that are targeted. There's the Italian community in St. Raymond's. They got a $400,000 bocce court roof. Don't ask me how that happened. There's the Filipino community who vote en masse. There's the Jewish Orthodox. That's where Perez gets his power from. He basically wins his elections basically from the Orthodox community and the Filipino community. Anybody who's involved in local politics who understands the day-to-day street level will, they can't argue with that. That's the fact.
So I guess it comes to me businesses had to change their strategy to go from hard retail offers, which is what I feel most politicians are doing, to soft sell seduction via content and education. So,
well, you're asking, business had to change because they were forced to. They needed to remain. They needed to maintain
only
30%
of people be voting.
Yeah, but the politicians that are winning elections like it that way.
So I guess
it works for them. Why would they change it?
So I hear that, but that's where it's like, and
we got the foxes taking care of the hen house, right? They're the guys that basically have the power and the tools to change the system to make it more democratic, more open, more representative. But they're not, because it gets them elected. It's as simple as that. It's not brain surgery.
But I don't think people realize how much their vote really actually could sway this. I don't think people are cognizant of that due to
they're not.
And
they're
you know
not.
what? And I realized it might not even be fully the responsibility of candidates in full to run this. One of the things I learned from Peter McQueen was, I guess, the effectiveness of citizen organization and collectivism within the community to care. I've learned about, collecting petitions and how to do all that right. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I only know because y'all agreed to talk to me for extended period of times. And let's be real, the number of people that can have a one-on-one to the length that I can and go as deep as I can in the way that I can, because y'all have to behave, is not as common as the average person might get.
Very, very, very rare. And we have to also ask our question, I'm being honest with myself, and I think it's important that we be honest with ourselves. And it's how many people have listened to this conversation right now from beginning to end, or to beginning to this point, and how many people are reaching. And I'm challenged to answer that question. I don't know.
I could say that there's about 6-7 people that have watched this pretty much consistent.
So the problem is, so 6-7 people is not going to change politics in CDN-NDG, unfortunately.
No.
And the big challenge I have is getting my message out. And again, to be honest and frank, I'm not getting the type of coverage that I was expecting to get from the media, the main media outlets in the city of Montreal. The Gazette has effectively ignored us. They haven't reported on Team Equipe CDN-NDG whatsoever. I find that a little disappointing, considering that I've been at this for 20 years. But this is the problem. People don't know. And I'm sure people would challenge my perspective on things, but I'm a numbers man. So I after the elections, I go poll by poll. I see where the poll by poll, and I see where the votes are coming from. It's for example, last election, the reason why Sue Montgomery won the mayor's seat is quite simply Marvin Rotran had his party, and he was contesting Perez and Coderre. And they split the core communities, their core constituent communities, being the Filipino community, the Jewish Orthodox vote, and they split that vote, and Sue Montgomery was able to go up the middle, and that's not happening this time. Perez, who threatened to sue Marvin Rotran when Marvin Rotran made accusations against Koopman for making him like a bribe of a position as for the ombudsman, is now best buds with Rotran because they both realize that they're not going to win the election if they're divided. There's going to be a repeat of the last election, and it's not going to happen this time. Perez is on track to win. This is the man. He's now casting himself as a progressive. I really can't see how Mr. Perez is a progressive at any level, and he's on track to win. And I follow him on social media, and he's tapping into his key constituencies like he always does. And now he's got Marvin Rotran, who retired, but the person who's in Snowden is this gentleman called Sonny Moretz, and he's basically a Marvin Rotran protege, and he's just basically riding off the cattails of Marvin Rotran, and is going to basically tap that constituency that allowed Marvin Rotran to stay counselor there for 44 years. And Marvin Rotran is another one. He's another one that's wins elections, never wins popular mandates. He wins elections with 500 votes. That's it. That's it. He wins with 2% of eligible voters. So, dictators don't last as long as he did. It's like this. It's really ridiculous. And people know nobody. What I find so strange is that our local media is so weak, and it really doesn't have any context in any really major way that you just don't understand these larger issues that are confronting us. And that's sad. I think that's very sad because these are important issues that need to be discussed.
When you say local media, are you talking like the Gazette? Because
there's nothing like there used to be
why I'm doing this, because I was like, yo, who speaks English? Shout out NDG winning, and shout out the one that Walter guy
Atlas,
does. So shout out to other people that are here that do speak English, that do run it. But like the fact that we can probably list most of the people on a hand is not exactly like that encouraging. There's a lack of
so wait. I got to say something, please. Holden, just give me.
Oh, do your thing.
I talk a lot, I know. But
I love
it. If you're listening to this interview with me with Holden, and you like what you hear, like, look, you got to talk. You got to talk to your neighbors.
So
you got to have a conversation.
That's actually what Sandrine was saying. Sandrine was like, you may be surprised at what the power of people listening. Like,
you got to talk to your neighbors. You say, I listen to Alex Montagano. You should say it. If you don't, look, you may not agree with my policies, right, and what I stand for in terms of what I want to do for the borough, but what I'm talking about, how our political system works, that's the reality. So if you're not happy with that, you got to talk. You got to talk to your neighbors about that.
So the more I think about this situation, I realize that there's a lack of pundit roles, because politics has pundits, and without pundits, there's no drama.
Drama is good.
And I know what it is, but like it's kind of like, look, I do the music thing. It is not lost on me that fake beefs are a real way to make a lot of money, because frankly, humanity doesn't cater the nice stuff. I believe Squid Game is the most viewed thing on earth according to Netflix, and that is quite not nice in terms of the violence levels. That's what people like. That's the facts of a situation. We can't rewrite humanity. And I didn't watch the debate yet that y'all did a couple of days ago, but I hear it was not entertaining.
No, it wasn't a good. I didn't think it was a good engagement of the candidates. I wasn't really given the opportunity to challenge or call out Mr. Perez or Sue Montgomery on their records. That was unfortunate. I tried to make the best of the situation, and but I again. In all honesty, I found it boring myself. I was like, I can't believe I'm on this call. This is going on forever. And it's like, really, it was too controlled. It was too monitored, and it lacked drama. And, you got to make it, I guess, that I use my trains that way, right? Like super nerdy, maybe that's going to hurt me. but I'm using my layout, which I enjoy doing. It's been an excellent distraction for me during the pandemic, kept me sane. But I use the trains to pull people in and hopefully use trains as a mechanism of saying, did you consider this local thing that this raises about local businesses, supporting local businesses? So on my layout, I have, the Ren Station Griffintown, which Project Mordial wants to call Griffintown Bernard Laundry. So it's political, absolutely. And I use it for political ends. And at the same time, I take a lot of pleasure with it. But, it's like, you're right. We have to find creative vehicles. But it's also like,
maybe you can't say it. And realistically, y'all can't say some stuff that, like, I might be willing to say that y'all aren't willing to say. Because let's be real, I don't really have a huge...
I'm willing to say a lot. What is it you want to say?
Politicians are boring, and they don't want to be not boring. They want.
Am I boring? No, tell me I'm not boring.
No, you're relative. You're entertaining. But I also
look at this shirt. This is a very entertaining shirt. Like, come on, I chose the most colorful shirt I own for this meeting, right?
It comes down to me like this. Like, if I were to spit the facts as I see it, everybody's playing a minority to win because they know it's gonna work. And if I were to come and change the system up, I drop education. Like, I'm honestly tempted, going through this whole run, not to win. I would be so scared of winning. I don't want to win. I would really sabotage my own campaign. But really to do, like, a lot of education stuff. Because, like, I know in my head...
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work if it's not your specialty. I'm sure for me to fix a house would be a very painful process, and I'd call you.
It's a painful process for me. Just so you know.
There's like, when it comes to like tutorial videos and education, I'm maybe not a fancy editor guy, but like the actual creation of this stuff is way simpler than people think to be effective. To create a PowerPoint and turn it into a video, not that hard. Real easy, actually. And I'll bet with some PowerPoints,
I could use some help, Holden. There's still like 4 weeks left of the campaign, so I need help. I run a business. I was like, I work full time. I'm having.
But like, you have the party, right? So like, y'all create a party. How does the party work? So like, I mean, because to me, it's like I look at this thing. Like, you have a party, which is supposed to be the promotional vehicle of your thing, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
At the party level, I understand that nobody has money, but there's got to be a way to collect people on experience.
Perez has got money. He's got tons of money. He has an election office. He has posters plastered all over the borough, and he's sending. We're receiving pamphlets.
They were like walking around with film crews and stuff, and I was
like, "Where's that money coming from? I want to know because I need some of that."
Honestly, though, I'd fundraise.
Yeah, good luck with that in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, I mean,
in the middle of a
pandemic, I can empathize with that, but
there's a little tidbit I should tell you, Holden. During the Tremblay administration, a journalist, Linda Gulai, looked at where Tremblay, which Perez comes from that, right? He's from the Tremblay administration. Right. He's a carryover from that. So she did a story, where is all this money coming from that's financing these political parties? And 97% of the money funding these political parties came from subcontractors, the city of Montreal. So how am I supposed to get the interest of subcontractor city of Montreal? They're going to look at me and go, who is this guy? He's a contractor, does residential work. I don't get any business from him. There's no interest or advantage for me of donating to his political project or his party. So I get nothing. I get zilch. And, and also to that extent, right? People like politics, unfortunately, and for good reason, it's gotten a bad name, right? You hear it on the radio. I don't want to be political, because I want to stay away from that. But again, my
Facebook is the opposite of that. My Facebook is pure politics.
Yeah, I challenge that. I always challenge that. I said, how can you be not political? You're born in a hospital in a country that provides Medicare. That's political. It's like the second you breathe air as a human being within our community or collective, you're a political animal. And but unfortunately, because our own politicians are to blame for the most part, like because of all the gaming that goes on.
So I agree that the incumbent, I think incumbent is the people who are there. Those folk maybe have whatever interest. My thoughts are on campaigning in the future, right? Evidently, I mean, I don't know what the voter turnout is. If the voter turnout are like 90%, I'll shut the fuck up. I'm not going to lie. I'll just be like, okay,
Right.
I was wrong. I'm just not predicting that.
Yeah, but it's not just about for voter turnout. It's about like the capacity for the candidates to reach the constituency and are able to communicate their message and in a cost effective way. Because there's really like, what way do I have to cost effectively reach the constituency? I could knock on 107. Well, it's not 170,000 doors, but I can knock on. It's got to be at least 100,000 doors in Côte-Neige, include Côte-Neige-NDG, if you include apartments. I just don't have that capacity. How can one person knock $100,000 doors?
I was thinking about.
It's not possible. It's not feasible.
That's where it's like,
what other avenues do I have? Do I have the media? The media, they're overwhelmed by the larger Montreal election. They're not focused on the local issues. So there's a lot of problems. And do I have all the answers? I don't. I really don't. I've been trying to crack that nut for a long time now, because I think that if people listen to me and hear what I have to say, and they will go, this Alex guy, I don't think he's the right guy for mayor. Or maybe they'll say, yeah, I think he's the right guy for mayor. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's been involved a long time. He knows how the system works. But people, they say, oh, Alex, I don't think he's the right guy for mayor, but he knows what he's talking about. And because I listened to him, I was able to like understand the history of the borough. And not just me, there's other people in the community as well that have history or know the history.
So I feel like the bigger issue is that it has to be like, let's say there are a bunch of people that really do care about getting other people to vote and care.
Right.
Then we have to embrace some other things. And I know that in the next 3 weeks, not a lot can happen to reinvent the wheel, but what happens after the election? I feel like I've never heard of a person investing, not that the active politicians, because they've got their job to do at that point, but everyone else, I'm like, say a word, if I lost, I'm spending the next 4 years campaigning.
Yeah, but again, like, I'm going to get a divorce if I do that. And what about my son? What about my business? Like, I just can't do it. It's just not possible. It's not, I'm not going to sacrifice my family life and my business and my marriage because I want to campaign for the next 4 years. And it's come down to that. And that's why incumbents are really hard to displace, and how the current system really, it's broken. It really is severely broken. And, it's frustrating. And, there's days I wake up and I say, I don't know why I'm here. Why am I doing this? This is insane. And I always, but I am a determined man. Like if it was easy, I wouldn't do it, right? Because it'd be boring.
No, I hear you. I just think, I think that
I'd
there
be bored
is
out of my mind.
a way
I like
to
hard things.
So here's stuff you could do in the meantime. Find somebody to take your ideas and channel them.
Holden.
I know.
Can you be that guy for me, please?
In the future, in the greater purpose of things, in the next 3 weeks, probably not. I'm very taxed on my schedule.
So who? Send them to me.
But
hello, are you out there? I'm looking for
post
you.
The election,
you there?
Honestly,
are you there?
There's got to be like
down here. What about under my desk? Nope, not there.
So this is where it's like, I know a lot of maybe people that like understand social media and TikToks and all this stuff, and I actually go find. I'm actively looking for 23-year-olds right now. I figure 22, 23.
I can't actively look for 23-year-olds because people think.
I know. I'm in there. I got a little buffer where I make music, so
what's
it makes it easier.
What's that 55-year-old trying to seek out 22-year-olds?
But then again, it all makes sense when you're like, look, I'm trying to get elected. I'm trying to figure this out. I need help.
Hang out at universities with a sign seeking 22-year-olds.
No, but you could contact the political sciences department of Concordia and reach out to that person and actually have them put out a little bulletin inside of their thing and like that. But that's the kind of stuff where I'm like,
you got me there. You got me there. I could do that.
People. So
I
it's
could
like,
do that.
I don't know that I know the answers to talking to 22-year-olds and making them care, because I'm now getting more to your age than not on that conversation. So it's not, I'm facing the same challenges you're facing. I'm a 33-year-old rapper, and in music, I'm a dinosaur. So
But you
like,
still have your hair, man, so you should be happy about that.
but it's going gray. So in music, I'm a dinosaur. Um,
The beard is absolutely stunning, man. I want to cut that up and do like
yeah,
maybe.
it's alright. Trust it. In the sunlight, you'll see the white ones poking through and stuff. But like, it made me realize the way people party changed, the way people talk. Yo, I found out like Snapchat's really cool. I thought it died. I didn't know it was still cool. Like, there's stuff out there that like I just didn't.
I need
know
help
about.
with that. I'm a Facebook
it's
guy.
like,
That's all I really am, to be honest with you. I'm on Facebook,
I
and
am like willing to put money
I,
down though that if there are what 5-figure students at universities, there's gotta be like 3 of them that would volunteer to like help political candidates for the brownie points of having that on their CV.
if they're ambitious,
That's-
they may want to associate themselves in one of the established parties, because you're not going to make much of a career in politics
No,
by becoming a
but you
member of
get
Team CDN-NDG.
But you see, you're looking at it with that. But I'm looking at it like, I don't know if you're right, because like you're getting practical job experience, whereas the bigger party might not even consider you. So like, I think for like young people who face the
Yeah.
real life job experience thing,
True.
you create
True.
a vehicle where, I mean, obviously I'm not thinking you're gonna find 100 eager young people, but I'm saying like you could find a few and a couple
could.
of. And I'm saying
Yeah.
every political party could have taken an approach like that, actually get, not as a candidate though, but like some strategic volunteers to basically run y'all social medias for you and come up with some, because yo, like there's free photo editors. These kids on $8 on a video app can make something better than somebody with Premiere.
I hear you.
So
I hear you.
it's
So
like,
I decided it's a project to consider, but that's, I think it's a little late for this election, but perhaps the next time around.
because
So,
like I'm like, that's what I'm trying to think about it, is how do we reinvent the wheel? Well, honestly, people can podcast, people can engage each other more. Like, I would argue that the lack of political candidates engaging with each other, it felt like everyone is operating in independent silos, and they
Yes.
don't even want to acknowledge each other exists on some weird. And it's like, I don't know how to convince people to take risks that they clearly don't want to take, but I definitely think if the mission is to make young people care and to increase the percentage of people that care, it definitely has to be more engaging. And the best ways to make something more engaging is to leverage the ridiculously cheap tools that the internet provides.
I hear you. I do. And I think that's a revolution that's coming. Has it really caught up with us yet? No. I think that there's some crises on the horizon that are coming down the pipeline, and hopefully that will get young people involved in the process, because then, the decisions of their forefathers are going to start impacting them in very negative ways. And maybe we'll have like a revitalization or a resurgence of an active and participatory democracy. But right now, we're still in the doldrums of just like crappiness. It's just like we had 30% participation in the federal election, and like I said, and when it comes to municipal elections, very little participation, and very and entrenched interests, like very difficult to displace, very difficult to create a political like environment that becomes more representative as the community as a whole, as the system is designed right now. So this is the problem. And then obviously there's that piece about how CDN-NDG is treated within the larger city of Montreal. We are ignored, we're neglected, we're discriminated against financially. If you ever go down, I challenge anybody to go down to the borough offices and go to the administrative offices of a borough and get and tell me if they feel the sense that they feel that this represents us, this is reflective of us as a community. I'm sure 99% of visible minorities, cultural minorities, Anglophones, and anybody with any empathy would say no, it's not who we are. And but that's what it is, right? unfortunately. And how do we manifest ourselves? And to me, the big question is, how do we come together as a community to exercise political power to secure political goods? That's how I see things. I study politics, right? And that includes young people, right? So how do we get everybody to rally together and say, no, you're not going to divide. You're not going to divide and conquer us, right? By buying us off with chump change, which really it is. It's chump change, right? They're buying us off with chump change. We want our fair share of the budget. And the thing is, let's just look at the situation here. Like, we're shortchanged approximately $15 million a year. So that's $60 million in this mandate, right? But then what about all the years before where we shortchanged? The investments were, there weren't proper investments or equitable investments in our community. You're talking about decades of neglect, and you don't catch up with something like that overnight. There has to be, a significant readjustment, and that is, it's going to be difficult. It's a hard road, and right now, as the way the election's lining up, I'm putting my finger in Perez, because Perez is the man beat, and I want to hear Perez tell me how he's going to fix this problem. And I think the most comical thing that I've seen to date, okay, most comical thing I've seen to date from Mr. Perez, because he just seems to yap out party or feel good slogans that don't really mean anything, is the most comical thing I've seen to date is this sign he's put up that he's going to get 100 park benches for us in CDN-NDG. Have you seen that? And we don't have proper garbage cans. It's like, I just don't get it. We have plastic barrel garbage cans in our parks. We don't even have a recycling program for our garbage cans in our park. I went to Confederation Park yesterday. You have homeless people living in the park. It's like, okay, Perez, let's get those 100 park benches. It's going to fix all our problems. It's just like, I got to laugh at it, because if I don't, I think I'd go on some sort of rampage. It's just incredible.
No, I mean, but I think that's kind of, so to answer your question though, I think somebody has to be a martyr.
Well, I'm not killing myself.
No, I don't mean it like fully like that, but I mean like somebody has to be willing to take that hit. Like, I sat there and I said to myself,
take what hit?
Whatever reputational hits to say what needs to be said. Like, somebody has to be like, yo, I'm here to lose, and say what needs to be said.
I think that I've been pretty frank in this conversation.
Nah,
people have accused me of being racist. They say, "Oh, you're racist," and I said, "How is it that I'm racist?" Oh, it's because you target communities. You say they get preferential treatment. I'm not saying they're getting preferential treatment from the city of Montreal. What I'm saying is that what happens is that you have these voting blocks. The city basically tries to appease and win votes and win favor from, and this discriminates against us all as a total as a community. Because what happens is that our larger issues are being ignored just because of how the system works, the electoral system works, and because people don't vote. So, and this is the reality, and I have to deal with that. I've been called lots of stuff, man.
No,
I've been called a sexist. I've been called a racist. I've been called an asshole. I've been called emotionally unstable. What else? I'm married and I have kids, right? So I gotta deal with this, right, with my children and my wife. So and I have toxic trolls that troll me online, who I've blocked, for the matter. Then I get criticized for blocking people who are toxic to me and call me names. Oh yeah, they call me narcissist is another one I've been called. So I humbly apologize if I have offended people. And it's not my intention, but I cannot accept people being abusive to me online. I will block you. I make no apologies for that.
I hear
none.
You. I mean,
I don't apologize for that.
I
apologize for a lot of stuff.
But that's where I'm like, personally, I don't care about the people I block in that moment. They don't, like, their vote doesn't matter. Like, this is my attitude.
You have to have a thick skin, right? You got to blow them off.
I guess that's another thing. I choose to be scrutinized on the internet. I made that choice a very long time ago, and I'm super not that comfortable, but getting comfortable with it now that people know my name more. You know, like,
Right.
but like for me, it's like I've been called a lot of things on the internet by choice, and I can imagine that trying to be a civic servant in an era where the internet was thrust upon you would be a different kind of challenge. Where maybe it is gonna take some people that are like able to just handle the barrage of hate to really come through and
Well,
manage that.
my strategy right now is I just ignore it. Like, if someone posts something that's toxic and it's not productive or constructive, I just don't respond. And I think that's the best strategy that we can all employ. And in fact, I think that would have been the best strategy to deal with Mr. Trump, Donald Trump. Like, I never posted about Donald Trump. I think I thought Donald Trump was, it was insane. It was really like, incredible, the type of things he said and what he represented. But I think that it just fed this machine that it just was shocked and goes online. Oh, shocked what Donald Trump said. This guy's such an asshole. I'm like, best thing you could do about an asshole and someone like that is ignore him. Just ignore it. And we didn't ignore it, and it became this massive like problem.
If anything, the news is in a lot of trouble right now because of that guy. They are looking for reasons to keep talking about him because, frankly, they're losing so much money on how boring Biden is.
Yeah, well, Biden, when I launched my campaign, I made a joke about how boring my campaign was going to be. Is focused on basic issues, back to basics, picking up garbage, cleaning parks, and I kind of mock the press. Like, why would they report on something so boring? And you call Biden boring, but I think there's virtue in being boring. It's like, guys, boring.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Running a city is boring. It's mundane.
I agree with you, but
it's like
it has to do with how the news gets paid.
Glory stuff, right?
But it has to do because the media is really powerful, right? Like, they control narratives and brainwash some people.
Yes.
There's a lot of psychology into literally the. So, like, I don't know if you know who Malcolm Gladwell is, but he, in his latest book, or maybe whatever one he did a couple years back, was talking about the subtle influence of a newscaster smiling while saying a political's name versus not, and how it actually impacts Republican and Democratic Google searches. So
absolutely, there's a lot of psychology. They have psychologists, trained psychologists that have spent their years studying, the human mind and how we act in our collective, in our communities, and how to like make us do and feel certain things.
So with that, it's like the news.
There was a CBC show about that. It's still on. It's called Under the Influence, and talks about advertising and how they manipulate and how they're able to get people to buy stuff. And politics, it's similar, right? They're not want us to buy a product. They want us to buy an idea. And
but the media cycle gets their money on clicks. That's it.
Yes.
So whatever gets.
I don't know.
No,
I really can't. I can't really comment.
I know for a fact how this system of busince model works. This is not speculation. Okay. Web traffic equals eyes, the same way that subscriptions wasn't Sue was telling me, or I think it was her, I was telling me how the subscriptions wasn't the revenue source for the Gazette. It was that the subscriptions represented eyes, making the advertisers feel like there was value in paying the rates. So when you have eyes on your site, crazy traffic, 6-figure, 7-figure traffic, you make more money than when you're selling your advertiser slots. And when you get your viewership, you sell advertiser slots. So Donald Trump brought eyes, they got more money. The no eyes coming in, it's not about good or bad politics. It's just how the media is influenced and what they get monetized on.
And that's another question, because it's no secret that I'm very critical of the current media structure we have right now.
I am too.
For example, I'm most critical about CBC Montreal. They have a public mandate. They're financed by public tax dollars to cover local news. And I personally think they do a very poor job of it. they don't to me, they don't cover the day-to-day mundane issues that confront the community. They seem to be getting themselves caught up in sensationalist stories as well, which is very typical of the private media outlets. And media right now, and in defense of the current media outlets, they're competing with social media, and they don't have the funds like they had in the past to support investigative journalism. And it's become, I call it fast food news, right? They come up, they show up, they stick a microphone in front of you, they got a camera, they ask you a bunch of questions, they go ask the other candidates a bunch of questions. They don't go online, they don't research, they don't understand the context, the historical context. They don't stand the issues really on the street as it affects people from a day-to-day point of view. And then they publish this online, or they publish this, and it's all rushed. And again, in defense of the current media, you need resources, you need people, you need time. It takes energy, and they don't have time.
But unfortunately, it's also like, so unfortunately, they're also playing against Google. Google is a huge destroyer of it. So speed matters. Let's say there's 4 news cycles there, like 4 people. Right. Whichever one publishes first actually gets a huge advantage.
Yeah, but and I guess that saying that, if you publish first, that's fine. But just because you publish first doesn't mean you can't update, right? And I think that you're seeing that a little bit more now. Like, for example, when you look at CBC, they'll link prior stories in the same subject. But I think the Gazette does that as well, and so you can explore the subject a little bit more. But do the journalists? I don't even think the journalists have time to do that themselves, to look back at the stories that was done before. Because I'm always surprised the journalists call me up, like, for example, from the Gazette. Gazette has done reports on me and my activities within the community. Like I said, I've been involved in 20 years. And they don't even search their own archives before they call me. They don't even, who is this guy? Alex Montagano. And they don't even look their own archives. And once again, I just don't think they have the time. It's like they're flipping burgers. It's like, it's fast food news, and they don't have the time nor the resources to do proper stories anymore. And then, the local news, we had local news, you had the Chronicle, you had the NDG Free Press. We're kind of fluff papers, to be honest with you.
I got to give all love to the Free Press, though, because some dude covered me, and it was the first time I was ever in a paper like that. So all love to the Free Press.
And then you have the Suburban, and you have some good journalists that are working for the Suburban that understand the local scene, but their capacity to report on it is restricted. Let's put it that way.
All I can say is the Suburban knows that I don't read the Suburban, because it's in my building, so we picked it up a couple of times recently because we were curious, and we're looking at the articles, and I'm like, say word. The average, because you can tell who an audience is by the content. Like, it's really like it's transparent, I guess.
Right.
You could tell that the Suburban doesn't know people under 50.
It's their soft spot, But people, like, you're a musician, right? So you have a target audience, right? So
everyone does.
So it's always part of the game, I guess.
Oh, and I appreciate it. It's all the people that grew up with the Suburban. Like, I'm in the era where the Suburban was there, but we were reading the Mirror.
Yeah, remember the Mirror, the Hour. There was
the Mirror became Cult Montreal, as I understand. So they're kind of still here.
It did. Oh yeah.
Well, it's the same. It's the same guy behind the scenes, is what I understand.
Yeah, Cult Montreal has gone in a bad rap, but they did a couple of stories on us, and they covered the monolith that showed up on Sherbrooke, which was a fun exercise. They covered my exposure piece on our plastic barrels, and I went to other boroughs to see if the existence of plastic barrels was a purely uniquely CDN-NDG phenomena, and I discovered it was. And imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. We give the city $500 million each year in taxes, and our city can't afford proper garbage cans. Think about that for a second.
No, it's wild.
But we're getting 100 benches, right? So, oh my God, that's awesome news. That's gonna change everything.
See, this is like in my head. It's like, and I don't know how to like fully produce.
And free
this
bike
myself,
helmets. Don't forget
but
about the free bike helmets. That's gonna change everything, man. So now, yeah, go ahead.
I
Excuse
want to
me.
like, I'm gonna go find like, I don't have all the resources myself, but in my head, I'm like, I gotta find an animator person. Because I want to make like visual infographics about some of this stuff. Like, because that's the thing is, you guys have all told me a lot of stuff that I was like, oh wow, this is really like, I'm blown away by the fact that there's like 200 and change city councilors plus the other ones that aren't Montreal. So there's like 450 people that all in theory have to argue about things, all reflecting this little island.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
That sounds so bloated. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
It
wrong.
is bloated.
But that sounds like
It
as
is.
many people as the House in the States. Like, for the
It's
whole
very-
country of the States.
It's very bloated. There was a columnist, Henry Aubin, who I really enjoyed reading, who covered the municipal dossier, and he was consistently against the political party system in Montreal, and he basically stated on numerous occasions that the city council was bloated. And he also said that councilors is basically a part-time job, which it is, right? Like Michael Appebaum was operating as a real estate agent when he was a councilor and also mayor for a large part of his mandate, which was bizarre. Not that I have anything against real estate agents, but if you're a real estate agent and you're sitting on the urban planning committee, a committee that deals with real estate agent or real estate issues, that's problematic.
So you can be like a city councilor, which I believe is a relatively decent paying job from what Google told me.
Right.
And go work.
That's correct. Solly Sadal sold Israeli bonds. That was his gig. I'm sure Lino Perez has something, but we don't know what it is. He's a lawyer by trade, right? So we don't know, but I'm sure he does. He does side work. I'm not. Let me rephrase that. I'm not sure that he does, but there's a possibility he does. And there are some. I think there are some counselors that do this full time.
It just to me, it feels like with that salary range, this is a full time job.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing in the regulations or in the city laws or bylaws that stipulate that you have to do this full time. It's like, you have to show up at council meeting, and even that is not obligatory, right? So, it's a question to be had, right? So
that's wild. Like, to me, that's wild. It makes me go, okay, maybe I would want to get elected then, do it part time. But like that's wild, right? Like, that's not a good thought. Like, that isn't the right way to approach it. Also, definitely.
No, but people, I do believe that a lot of councillors who in office, treat it like a job, and it's not a job. If you're running for office and in a democratic system and you become councillor, you're serving the community. It's a public. You're serving the community. It's a public position. And there's a sacrifice there. And I think we all need to make those sacrifices in our lives. I make that sacrifice by running. This takes a lot of energy. It sucks up resources, time. It taxes my relationships. I'm making this sacrifice. And I think that a lot of counselors have lost that perspective. It's no longer a sacrifice. It's become a job. This is how I make my living. Being a counselor, an elected representative, should never be a job. This is something you do for a short period in your life to represent your community, then you move on. And I think the idea of a counselor being a counselor for 40 years or for more than, actually, I think there should be a term limit. I don't think a counselor should be counselor for more than three terms.
I mean, I don't know if I hate it if we have a good one.
Yeah, but even if it's a good one, even if you have term limits, it's important, because say what happens is a bad one. If it's a bad one, you're stuck with them indefinitely, right? Because displacing incumbents is very, very difficult. So I'm I'm come around to term limits. I think there should be term limits. I think that really a counselor after 12 years, 3 mandates, that's enough. You should go seek. Who in this economy does something the same thing for 10 years, 12, 13, 14 years nonstop for the same organization? It doesn't happen. And that's another thing about the city of Montreal, right? It's like it's really antiquated the way it operates. It's like, you ever watch Mad Men? Do you see that show?
Yeah.
It's like you're going back in time the way they operate. It's like the 50s, the 60s, and the way they organize. You have the directors, and they still, they have their adjoint, they have their assistants, and it's like they still have people type up letters for them. it's like who does this anymore? It's really like it's bizarre, really, because I spent 15 years in the IT sector, and I've worked in a variety of different business environments. And IT there's really been a downsizing of the admin positions and the management, and really focused on frontline services where you can charge for increased productivity. And we have not seen that at all. Very little in the city of Montreal.
I work for a software development company. Allow me to be
Right.
clear. I am in the nitty gritty of how the way I like to describe it is I effectively replace myself in the future every day, and have to
Right.
invent my future job before I replace myself.
This is not the city of Montreal. This is like people who work there their entire life, from cradle to grave, and very lucrative, paid very, very well. Peter Trent, actually, the former Westmount mayor of former mayor of Westmount, he just wrote a book, and was just exposing, like our civil service and our blue collar workers are paid 35% more than other blue collar workers and civil servants in other cities. It's just what happens is that the politicians in the city of Montreal, and we have pretty militant unions as well, have just they'll buy the piece at any price, and who ends up paying that bill? The taxpayers. And it kind of manifests itself in really ugly ways. Like for me, when our public transportation system is being hijacked by people who are basically making 6-figure salaries, like they're making $100,000 a year, you include all the benefits, and they're driving people to jobs they're just struggling to get through and get by in their lives. It's like, who are you? Who are these people?
I've heard some serious stories about that era. Like STM, where
you're in a position of privilege. You have a civil service job. You're paid extremely well for your services, and you're holding all us chumps, all us guys who got to schlep to work, right, for a salary far less than you do, and you're holding us hostage. Like, we can't get to work, we can't make the money to pay our bills and pay our goddamn city taxes that pay your salaries. It's just like I'm gonna lose it. I can't like wrap my head around it. It's just like, and our politicians tolerate it. It's just ridiculous. It's silliness. Yeah.
So apparently the STM
that was a rant.
I think that was they're going to go on strike if they don't get more funding. Here's the thing, right? Like, I don't think people are like cognizant of it. From what I understood during that era of STMing, there was stuff going on where people my age would get hired, and my age back then was 22 and shit, right? Like, I was young back then. I'm like, people my age would get hired and be like,
this happened recently. This happened in the plant administration. I
didn't even realize
it was a recent thing that happened. It was during the plant administration.
But if you go back to like the way that it can manifest is there's a lot of inefficiency in the way that the day-to-day operations run. Like, they create quotas based on past performance, not what makes sense. So let's say you work too hard, you get told don't work so hard, you're going to make us look bad. And there's some stuff like that goes on. I'm not saying
there was a show on French, on the French TV network. It was like Bogans, and the city of Montreal, working for the city of Montreal, popped up several times in that show. And basically, the show is a comedy that the family was his welfare recipient family. and there was there were different members of this family, and all their schemes and scams that they were using to secure, public funds. But there was always this guy in the family who wanted to do the right thing. And he went to work to the city of Montreal, and that turned into a disaster. And they poke fun of that, right? They poke fun of that kind of culture, right, that exists out there. Not to suggest that people don't need welfare and support, and there's people who are in a hard spot that need help. But there's also this whole.
I know a whole bunch of people that do a couple of little things.
Yeah, but there's this whole culture in Quebec of milking the system, gaming the system, right? And they game it, right?
It's not.
And I experienced that in the contracting business right now. I have people on the CERB who call me and want to work for cash. So what are you're sitting at home collecting the CERB, then you want to come and work for me for cash? That ain't happening. It's like, forget that.
Well, you may be an honorable one.
I just can't. I won't do it. It's just like, what kind of person are you? You're basically sucking. You're living off the public purse, right? Because supposedly you're in distress. I have a job for you, and you're refusing it. It's just, my God. It's like we're all gonna pay for that. You know that, eh? It's all gonna catch up with us, right? We're gonna wake up one day, and the government's gonna say, we have no money. We're in debt to our eyeballs. And why? Because we're all gaming the system. And everybody's to blame to a certain degree, right? We tolerate it, right? There's this judgment day is coming. I tell you, it is coming.
Well,
it ain't going to be pretty.
I guarantee you, in about a month, a lot of people are going to find McDonald's is $18 an hour a lot more appealing than they did in September.
Yeah, because they're terminating the CRB now, right? Yeah. So we'll just see what happens, after it ends, because Justin Trudeau extended it. Just after the election, of course, right? We won't read too much into that.
Did he extend it further?
I heard he extended it after the election. That's the last news I heard. But I don't know I don't think he's extended further. No. So, and I eat. There's an excellent Vietnamese restaurant on Sherbrooke in NDG. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. And their dining hall is not open. And I asked the owners, why is it you don't open your dining hall? I'd love to sit with you. They're very friendly. She says, we can't find people to work for us. It's no labor. We can't open the dining room because we can't find, servers and cashiers. And the people who want to work for us, they're asking for ridiculous amounts of money to come back to work. And there's jobs out there. And these are not jobs at like $14, $13 an hour. These are $15 an hour jobs, right? They're not. You
gotta understand. To me, the idea of working for $15 an hour would make me want to cry in my soul. So
yeah, but you're a talented man, right?
No, but it makes me go, yo, I mean, if I just got that $2,000 a month life, I don't know that I want to go back.
Yeah, well, especially if you're collecting CERB.
That's because I didn't do it, right? Like, I mean, I didn't lose my job, thankfully, which is a great thing. My girlfriend.
But I'm not here to comment. Like, I believe, I believe that anybody who's paying less than $15 an hour, I can't understand how you can operate a business like that. Like, I don't want to work for people who are struggling to make ends meet. And I work in the construction business, and I have people who work for me, and I like to think I pay them well, pay them very well. And I'd rather be that position as a business person, right? I wouldn't want to be in a position where I'm in a business that, I gotta like cheap everything in order to make a profit. And there are some businesses like that, and the fast food industry is one of those,
it's
right?
It's kind of like, or you
the
look
Tim Hortons,
the whole tip economy and bars and stuff.
Retail industry, yeah.
I mean, I'm not like, I don't know what it's like because I'm not in those shoes. I just know that the idea of $15 an hour trips me out in my 30s. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're talking about stuff that's not municipally. This is a federal and provincial.
No, that's very true. However, what
it's
about
it's the provincial government that established them.
So yeah, let's bring it back. Somebody
like
said
I'm getting scared of this conversation because now I'm doing what I accuse my opponents of engaging
I don't.
It's talking about stuff that I really don't have any control over.
So on the subject of jobs, right?
Right.
Do you have any influence within the city in NDG to create job opportunities for young people?
I like that question. And I wanted to talk about that earlier, but I always got distracted and sidetracked. I think the city has an important role to play in that way. I think the borough CDN-NDG should be investing a lot more money in its young artists, and should be providing forums and opportunities for them to demonstrate their art. I also believe I've traveled a lot, and I've always when I travel, I always appreciated the bazaar markets. I think it's a good cultural experience, and it's also a way for people to generate, a good living. And one of the things that I would like to see is for a market. Why don't we have our own version of Jean Talon Market or Atwater Market for 170,000 people? And I would like the city to invest and build a market here. One of my proposals is, let's cover the DeCary Expressway and put a market there at the intersection of Queen Mary and DeCary Expressway. And people will say, where's the money going to come from? I think it's going to come from the $500 million we give you a year. That's where it's going to come from. God damn it. It's like, and we're giving you the money, give it back to us. So back on young people, I think that the city has a role to play in, like encouraging entrepreneurs and young people and artists like yourself. And, there's a variety of ways we can do that. And that comes back to my villages idea. We create villages and provide an opportunity for young people to display their goods and sell their goods in like pop-up markets, or maybe create some community space where people can, present and sell their wares and their or whatever their creations. Or there's a lot of creative talent in the borough of CDNG. Just look at Thrive and the paintings, Robert Monjou paintings. There was somebody doing some miniatures that was really interesting, creative. I do remember a woman who was creating food stuff, Stephanie Gadial, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of talent out there, and we should be tapping into that. And as a community, I think that it's important that we encourage this type of activity, because, again, we've seen, a lot of us do it, and we've seen a lot of purchase go away from, they call it brick and mortar, right? The hard retail space, right? It's gone online. And we need to provide some sort of vehicle or mechanism for people to make a living locally. And that comes back to the village concept, investing heavily in developing villages. We need to invest heavily, because what's happened is that CDN-NDG has been designed around the automobile. And, the only way to really address that is to invest heavily in transforming our commercial streets to service local needs. And to create the shopping experience. I think it's really shopping now on a community level is about the experience. It's not about, it's about people who don't want to click their mouse and buy something online. They want to leave their house. They want to go for a walk with the family and the kids or whatever the case. And they want to buy locally produced goods. Or, I think they would be also open to buying, imported produce as well, if it's a unique proposition, right? Are there still people listening to this, or are we all alone now?
No, we still have about 6-7 people watching.
Any questions from the audience? Hello, are you out there? No?
No, I mean, there's no questions for a bit, but people are listening, which is as good as questions, in my opinion. People because it's that's how people are. I can see that there's 7 people on Twitch, there's one on Facebook. And as time goes on, Sandrine commented before Mate Latte in response to something you said, but it was I'm not going to bring that up. But yeah, people will be there, because as long as you're interesting and the conversation flows and it doesn't circle back too much, people stick. Well, you also have a lot to say, right? I really appreciated Neal and his interview, but man, that guy answers everything in 8 words. So it was no.
I like Neal. He's a good guy. Neal and I worked together on several dossiers, and one of the dossiers we worked on was we made a complaint to UPAC And the Directeur Général des Élections, when Marvin Rotran announced in the council that Koopman basically tried to get him not to run for election by giving him the seat, the Budman's position in the city of Montreal. And DGA took that complaint seriously and did an investigation. And Global had done a story on that. And then Neal Mukherjee is by profession, he's an auditor. And we pushed the administration on anti-corruption ISO certification 37001, which Sue Montgomery said was too expensive when we first approached her on the subject, but then changed her mind. And unfortunately, it seemed like her interest in ISO 37001 became more of a project of malice, of exposing the administration, which she had a grudge with, a gripe with. So it kind of like collapsed. It didn't really go anywhere. But the interesting thing of that exercise is that there was an anti-corruption audit that was done in the borough, and they discovered that the borough of CDN-NDG does not have an anti-corruption policy. And that was just shocking. I just couldn't believe that. I really couldn't believe that. I said, you got to be kidding me, right? And the funny thing is, Perez is going to say, oh, we set up the Bureau d'Invest big office, which is the Bureau Inspecteur Général. That's it. Excuse me. So many acronyms. But Linda Gulai just came out recently in an article in the Gazette. She wrote a book. She published a book. Linda Gulai is, as far as I can see, is the last investigative journalist that's still working for the Gazette. She doesn't publish very much anymore. I don't know why. That's a question you should ask her, because I don't have the answer to that. She came out with an article recently that said that really the anti-corruption measures the city of Montreal put in place really don't address where the corruption was coming from in the past. And where corruption was coming from the past wasn't so much from the subcontracting deals or with subcontractors. The large part of it was coming from permits, providing urban planning permits. And that's where the corruption was with Michael Appebaum, with the Benny Sports Complex. And people were like, oh, Alex, you're boring me. You're exhausting with this conversation about anti-corruption. It's the past. But what people forget is that there's this repeat cycle in Montreal where we have like this period of like kind of normalcy, and then boom, it blows up, and there's this big scandal around corruption. And then we have all these like inquiries and stuff like that. Then the dust settles, and then we get back in this period of normalcy, and then it just blows up again 10, 12 years later. So it's been it's a cycle that happens in our political life. And the thing is, there are real consequences for corruption in the city of Montreal. And one of those is the Benny Sports Complex. It's falling apart. I know people who work there, and they say that it was badly built. It wasn't well designed. And the changing rooms are incredibly small. And they had people come and take a look at to see if they could somehow expand them and fix the problem. They can't. They're stuck in the current configuration of the building. This is what, ladies and gentlemen, this is what corruption gives us, okay? This is what happens when our politicians are corrupt. And what Appebaum, don't forget that when you have a litigation or an investigation that happened in Appebaum, they go after the politicians in which on the charges they can make stick. It's basically the tip of the iceberg. It's representative of a larger problematic as it relates to the corruption in the city of Montreal that was a part of the culture of the city of Montreal that time. And every elected representative who held office at that time was accountable for that. Okay, they were accountable. They were at the wheel. They were responsible. And it amazes me to this day how you have politicians still around from that era who really haven't owned up to that. They haven't said, you know what, I have to take a responsibility. Yes, I should have done a better job. I should have done something about that. But no, it's like the standard political response, right? You just brush it on the carpet, you pretend it didn't happen, and you hope it goes away. And the fact that we don't have an anti-corruption policy, in my mind, is really, that's what it is. It's about sweeping on the carpet, pretending it doesn't exist and hoping it goes away. But guess what? It doesn't. It just keeps on coming back. So, yeah, so that's my little blurb on Neal Mukherjee and the anti-corruption piece there. But we can talk more about, yeah. And my family has suffered direct consequences via our questions related to corruption. We had a car lit on fire in front of our homes. The intention was to burn it down, and the car burned so hot that it melted the paint off the siding of the house. And so, and I've had my car slashed. I've had threatening phone calls. Not lately. This was during the Appebaum era. So, it's out there, right? It exists. And it's also, it's also in the construction industry, right? Which I'm not a part of, because like I said, I focus on renos and restoring older homes. There's some dubious activities that happens with flips. Sometimes it's like it becomes flips are used as a money laundering exercise, right? You buy a house that needs to be fixed up, and you use cash for the materials, so it's a front for money laundering as well. So, but I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's a conversation where I don't know. I want that smoke.
No, you don't. You don't.
No, I don't. No, I don't. Not at all.
So, and what else? Talk about. We talk a lot about stuff.
We did. That's how this works. That's what we talk.
You want to keep on going?
Okay. Would you be surprised that there's a whole additional person that showed up since you last asked?
Oh, really? Please, this additional person who just started listening to this, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. Do y'all have any questions? Because at the end of the day, like, I do run out of creativity at a certain point. But it's also important because this is all stuff y'all care about, whether it's whatever subject or not. And then we have to wait about 20 seconds for it to actually hit the people. So you get this point. And then if anyone does have questions, they now have to type the question.
I see.
Usually between asking for questions and a question appearing, there's a good minute. And then a question at the earliest will show up. And then sometimes none come. And you're just like, oh, fair enough.
Is this like we're on the 10-second, a Don Cherry delay? Is that what that is?
In a sense, yeah, there's something like that going on. Because it's like we talk and it gets broadcast. And then like I can see it over there. And it's weird. Sometimes I'll do something and then I'll watch myself do it like 15 seconds later. And like it's
wow.
Being on camera a lot and seeing, everyone's going to be weird after this because you've seen your face more in the last year than people ever saw their face doing stuff. Well, for those of us that are on Zooms a lot and stuff, like,
I don't do a lot of Zoom. Because the construction business didn't shut down.
Right.
And we can't really work remotely, right? We have to be on site. So, Zoom has I know a lot of people have Zoom has become an important part of their lives. That hasn't happened to me. So I guess
all of my meetings at work, because they end up on these group calls where your face is amongst all the faces.
I saw a video online about a guy who's attending his Zoom meetings while riding his motorcycle.
That's amazing.
And it's just, I thought that was very funny. And I was actually considering the idea for this meeting, but I really didn't know what medium to use, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, theoretically you could do it, but it would be a lot of effort to maintain it.
A lot of effort. There would be a lot, and he did put a lot of effort in it. That's for sure. He put a blue screen behind him, and he had his laptop on his handlebars, and he actually did a jump.
That's amazing. So at this point, I am going to go with no. Nobody else had other questions because none of those questions came.
Alrighty.
Do you want to? Are you able to show people your train set, or is that like too complicated?
No, I could, but I really don't. I think people have seen it enough online, so I could go live later tonight with the trains, but I'm now in the Steam era. So I've had Steam out for a while, and I think I'm really in a hankering mood for Japanese. So I think the Japanese collection's coming out. It's about time. It's been a long time since it's sent Japanese.
I'm gonna assume that you got multiple train sets for your moods, and
guys, it's just I gotta own up. There's this real nerd factor about me, right? So, so it's part of I guess the different things I'm involved with.
I don't think you have to worry about being a nerd factor with your trains. People like.
I embrace nerdiness. Being a nerd is a good thing. Any nerds out there? Guys are cool.
So believe it or not, we got a question from the guy in Florida that watches all of my stuff and just happens to be
from Florida. All right.
Yeah. So he wants to know what American politician stands out to him, dead or alive. And shout out Lyndell for watching NDG politics videos.
What?
This guy's in Florida and he's watching NDG politics videos, which to me is kind of astounding to think about. But yeah, which American politician stands out to him? Stands out to you, dead or alive?
Dead or alive? What stands out to me? Well, Obama. I remember when Obama got elected. That was a moment of hope. An inspiration. Like I remember that day. It was a good day. Obama really is singed in my collective memory. And in spite of the fact that I don't agree with him or his policies or his perspective or his attitude on things, there's no denying that Trump has impacted the American political landscape in ways that will survive for some time.
That's facts.
And I'm concerned about the United States. The United States are our friends, they're our neighbors, and I really wish them peace, happiness, and success. And I'm very concerned when I watch TV and see the divisiveness and how they're divided as a nation, and I think that's not good for anybody. And again, I wish them happiness, peace, and success. And I like Americans, and you have a great country. It's a beautiful country. I've traveled extensively through the United States, and I like you guys. So remember that. Please just remember that. In spite of all,
end of the day, Alex is pro you guys.
How can you not be pro United States from the extent that they're our neighbors? You may not agree with their policies, right? But I discussed
cool with the
earlier,
people.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
may have some grievances with the government, but I don't.
And the Americans have done, they've done some, questionable things, right? And but this happens when, unfortunately, it happens when you're a country of such power and influence. Power.
Yeah.
What's the expression?
Power.
Absolute power
corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely, right. So this is, this unfortunately this happens, and it's not. I'm not condoning it.
No, it's just
or accepting it, but I have to be pragmatic, and I think we all have to be pragmatic. I think that, when I was in university in CEGEP, I was very concerned about environmental issues. When I was in CEGEP, actually, the big thing was I was SAGE, Students Against Global Extermination. The big fear back then was nuclear
annihilation.
Thank you. And, now the environment's a bigger concern. But at the end of the day, we're not going to move forward as a society and community, in my mind, if we're going around shaming people and it's not going to work. All we're going to do is people are just, their hair is going to stand on people's backs, and it's just to be that much more difficult to move forward. And this comes back to the borough and CDN-NDG related to there seems to be kind of like this kind of battle happening on the street, and I know it because I've experienced it as a cyclist. I put a lot of miles on my bike. I
Yeah.
lived on Queen Mary, and I worked in Dorval. I traveled there every day to and from there for work. I've lived the life of a cyclist, and you're like at battle to a certain degree with the motorists, right? Because you feel you gotta like find a space for yourself. In the city of Montreal, back then, it's better now. Back then, there wasn't a lot of space for cyclists. But we're not going to get anywhere by like shitting on each other. We really need to work together as a community to move forward. And I think that what's happened too is that um, because our communities become so dependent on the automobile and it's designed around the automobile, we're not walking on our streets anymore. We're not cycling because it's getting more and more dangerous, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Because our streets are dangerous to walk on or cycle on, people are driving more, and kids don't walk to school anymore. And these are really big problems, and we need to come together as a community to find solutions for that, because kids should walk to school. It's good exercise. It's a good way to start the day. For that matter, I should be able to. I would like to walk to work. The problem is that I'm in the construction business and I gotta move like a ton of equipment every morning. So it's not feasible for me. And I suspect there's a lot of other people in the borough who have the same problematic as I do. It's just not feasible for them. Where they work, and the connections by public transport are not good.
Also,
and on top of that,
there's a good chance you're also not working in NDG. Let's be real.
Yeah, and let's be honest with ourselves. The public service network in CDN-NDG, specifically the 105, there's even a Facebook page that was created called "For the 105 While We Wait," and it's ridiculous. I just can't figure out why we can't get proper bus service.
Honestly, the 105 at rush hour is a don't take it bus. Like, it's better to wait 20 minutes and take a 90 later on, or a 51 or something, and go to a farther metro.
We have to fix that.
And it's 13 stops. That's the whole route.
If we have to spend $500 million or whatever, $100 million or $250 million to fix that problem, that is money that we need to spend. And where is that money coming from, ladies and gentlemen? That's coming from the $500 million we give the city every year. So that money is there. That money that we pay that money in taxes, and we have a problem that needs fixing. And in order to fix this problem, we need our tax dollars to be spent. And so this is another example of it's NDG, they have a problem, big deal, It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a challenge when it comes down to the budgeting. But I also think, end of the day, the more that people can have conversations like this, even if it's not like an insane volume of people, right? I'd argue there's more podcasts covering politicians in this Montreal election than there was in the last one, right?
Yeah. Hopefully the trend will continue. But at the same time, in all, this is awesome what you're doing, but we also need to find a way, because not everybody, we've been on this, for how many hours now? It's like we started at,
let's say about 2-ish hours, almost 2
yeah,
and a half.
If you've been able to sit through this for 2 hours, I congratulate you.
But
I really do. You should get an award or something.
But a lot of people actually like the podcast format. Like, I don't expect everyone to watch it live, but it is going to be on Spotify later on.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then people can throw it on. Like, I know people throw on things. Like, this isn't designed to be watched. Like, somebody told me they were eating supper and it's on in the background. People have told me they do homework with their kids.
You're so not going to see my shirt? Oh my God.
Well, people watch it and it'll be on, and then they'll multitask. And that's the kind of format it is. But the thing is if nobody's getting the really, really deep dive and all you're left with is the super superficial, and I believe that there's a responsibility of some of us to take on more of a pundit role. And really bring the conversation with it. In which case, this kind of content has to exist to give the people something to talk about who want to spark the next conversations. And then the pundits can go to war with each other on all sorts of vile stuff because they're pundits. They're not elected officials. They're doing it for profit. And
Yeah, but again, this whole pundit idea that you have, I'm having these, visions of like Fox news
no.
pundits,
See, I watch like
CNN
YouTuber
pundits,
guys, right? And I see how it
and
can be done.
I don't,
Like
I don't think
those
that's, I don't
guys,
think
those
that's,
guys
I
aren't
don't think
it.
that's, I don't think that's healthy, right? Like it's
However,
amazing, it's amazing. I don't know if you follow Fox and CNN, but they report on each other. It's like I've never seen that before. You have news outlets reporting on what the other news outlet said that's
so
false.
like, I don't want to necessarily take it to the degree that like mainstream media takes it, but from an
Right.
alternate media perspective, the idea isn't necessarily to become like a political pundit in a ridiculous sense, but at a conceptual level, they're the ones that discuss this stuff so that the politicians don't necessarily have to discuss this stuff.
Yeah, it's fair enough. That's fair. If it's educated, if it's educated and
nuanced and
I
like,
guess it has how do you say context and
I'm like, let's be real. I'm a left-leaning dude, so there's got to be a right
You
version.
are?
Yeah, super left. Somebody on the right's got to be there.
You don't seem super left to me. I don't like I don't get that impression.
That's because, unfortunately, in your 30s, you accept that capitalism is real and you have to do some business stuff or whatever. But nah,
You're pragmatic.
I'm more left-leaning because, like, social policies like that appeal to me more than the right-leaning ones, and I never really flipped on that so much. I mean, I'm probably more center than I was. I'm not radical. But, like, I know for a fact that when it comes down to what I think, it's almost always left-leaning socialist policies. And therefore, there has to be the right version of that, too, to exist, to contrast the ideas, to create the debates, to go bigger. Like, yo, I'd be very willing to go toe-to-toe with somebody talking about benches. Like, you might not be willing to, but, yo, you could get some real interesting social media stuff.
I go toe-to-toe on benches, 100 benches, right? Like, I'd have fun with that.
I agree with the idea of big corporate, the way it's been done in that regard. Nah, but the small scale YouTube version is litty. That's where it's like people like me with cameras like mine, having opinions like mine, debating with other people like me, and it's kind of like a step back to a more authentic version. So I don't necessarily want to go the like TV version of it, but I think there's something to be said for people creating content that is meant and designed to be surrounding issues all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where it becomes
Sure.
like, or even like you could make like ideas I've been thinking of is what like a weekly web series could be. What social service in your neighborhood did you not know existed this week because the government's website's real trash? And then you literally find like available community groups and stuff. Like there's a lot I've learned about NDG in the last 5 months, to be honest, or 4 months. Or
Yeah,
that's
another good point that you raised. Like, there has to be a better vehicle and mechanism for us to communicate what's actually happening in our community. And, there's programs for children, there's sports programs, there's activities, athletic programs. The Benny Sports Complex, in spite of all its failings, has programs available for its citizens and residents. And, these need to be communicated. And there's also the West Haven Community Center.
Yeah.
And they do good work down there.
I have a friend who's a sound engineer, and he's working with the kids to like get them into Twitch and stuff like. So all this stuff is really there, but nobody knows it exists.
There's the Walkley Community Center, also in Walkley. So there's stuff happening in our borough, but again, how do you reach people? How do you communicate what's going on? These are challenges, right? I think it's a challenge for the city administration.
I think it's also a conversation for people like me to have with people like me. To be honest,
like I think that if you would continue this platform, which I encourage you to do.
Well, the platform's not going anywhere. I'll be like for me, I have my own missions with it. But
yeah, I understand. But
inclined,
interview people. Yeah,
right. To me, this was like a good stepping stone to get out of being pigeonholed into hip hop and like move into like this is just an interview show, where mostly I care about hip hop.
Pigeonhole. I like that. I like that word or that expression, I should say.
It's kind of like the fear of any kind of niche is that you get stuck in it and nobody can see you in a different way. So
Well, this is a dynamic that I also experience as a local public figure and politician, is that people want to pigeonhole me in certain places, and people say, you're left or you right. One of the best compliments I received from somebody online is, Alex, I follow you online, and like I haven't been able to figure out whether you're left, right, center. You're like all over the place, and I really, that was to me one of the nicest things that anybody had said to me, because I want to see myself as being a pragmatic, and I'm a businessman. Like I believe in the importance of businesses being profitable, productive, but I also believe that businesses have a responsibility to be good citizens. And I believe in social programs. I believe in helping people who are in a tough spot, who need help. But at the same time, I really don't have much tolerance for people who abuse the system, because you abuse the system and you basically you're taking resources away from people who really need the help. So I'm sympathize with the frustrations of automobilists in this world. There's a lot of problems related to traffic, congestion, construction. But at the same time, we all need to work together to explore other modes of transport, cycling, walking, and get people out of their cars and walking. Because first of all, it's not healthy for us to be so sedentary, and also it will help us as a community to build business and encourage our local business owners and entrepreneurs. But
yeah, I feel that.
So on that note, I think I've got to say goodnight, because my wife's giving me the evil eye, because it's way past our dinner time, and I didn't really tell her about this. And like I said, the price and cost of being involved in politics.
I hear you.
I love my wife, and she's a wonderful woman, and very good to me.
I appreciate that.
I'm very lucky.
I was like, it's
very
getting
lucky
to that point too of my end. But I appreciate you coming.
But Holden, I love you, man. I'm hugging you right now. Do you get that? There's the hug, man. There's the hug, man. I'm hugging you. You're a great guy. I like you. I'm so happy you were able to come over and see the train. It was really nice to share it with you. I really like sharing it. So if anybody's interested in seeing it, I'm very open to that. I always like having kids over. And I more than encourage you, Holden. Are you listening to me?
I'm listening.
I'm going to look in my camera, because that's the only way I can look you in the eye. There you go. I encourage you, sir, to continue with this exercise. You are doing good. This is a good thing you're doing.
I appreciate that.
I remember I discussed that we all have to make sacrifice for the community. We all have to pay our dues. You are paying your dues, sir.
I salute
you. I salute you.
I mean, to me, it's not like it's a bad move in my life, but I'd say it's good, and I appreciate all that.
I think I'll even try to create an N-scale version of you, put you on the layout.
That's awesome. But sure, I appreciate all of the people watching it too, because everyone. That would be cool though, actually. I'm really kind of game like that, but but like at the end of the day, I appreciate all the people who watched it though, because I mean, for me, it's like a show, right? If that chat number was at 2, I might not have been so enthused to keep running it as long, kind of thing. So like that part encourages me that people want to be invested in watching it. I mean, it's gonna be on YouTube and stuff after. So for all the people watching it in the future, I appreciate you too. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, whatever, all those good stuff.
How do you do that? Is that the heart? Is that how you do it?
I think it's like this.
I've never been good at this.
I think it's this.
Like this, whatever.
I don't think
whatever.
I've ever really done that before.
It's become cliche, so let's just leave it at that.
It's
all right,
good.
cool.
But I appreciate everyone coming
and vote. Vote.
Make sure you're registered to vote, apparently, because that's complicated too. But
alrighty, later.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Oh yeah, I like that one. That one I like. Live long and prosper. Yes, there we go.
That's definitely.
I can still do it. I love Star Trek.